I'm Tim Robinson from Tech East, and I'm your host this morning. This is Connected Innovation. So it's wonderful to see so many people from the business community and from the world of innovation support. We are delighted to bring this conference to you with New Anglia Local Enterprise Partnership. And we are indebted to the Norfolk Strategic Fund and the Suffolk Inclusive Growth Investment Fund for making this conference possible and this series possible. Our first speaker, Johnathan Reynolds, who is Director of Opergy and is also the Chair of the LEP, New Anglia LEP Innovation Board, will say a few words and demystify what we mean by clean growth, talking about convergence and collaboration. Johnathan, welcome to the conference.
Brilliant. Morning, everybody. Thanks, Tim. And particular welcome to all of the innovative businesses on the call and hopefully a number of universities and research centres, but also our innovation hubs and business incubators. So I can see a number of familiar faces and lots of familiar names on the list. So welcome to you all. For those that don't know me, so I'm Johnathan Reynolds, as Tim said. So my day job is Managing Director of the Opergy Group. We're a sort of innovative business ourselves, very much in the consultancy world, clean growth, clean energy, and innovation and technology. But I'm also fortunate to be a non-exec director as a main board member of New Anglia LEP and chair of its innovation board. So really, really pleased to be with you all this morning. It's going to take a few minutes just to talk through a little bit of background to the innovation board and where innovation really does sit at the heart of what we do as New Anglia LEP. And you'll see some of that coming through what some of the speakers later this morning also talk through. I'm going to actually talk about a new project that we're launching, and that's Connected Innovation. What does that mean? What's the program? What's the benefits? Why are we doing that? But particularly, what's the benefits to business? I want to talk a little bit about the opportunity for business and touching on what Tim was saying there around innovation and clean growth. This big challenge of net zero, which is going to be a responsibility on all of us to support its delivery and implementation. But the flip side of net zero is really clean growth. How do we encourage sustainable economic and innovative growth as far as we can? And also, just for those that haven't seen it, we'll be talking just a little bit about the new innovation prospectus that the LEP has launched as well, just to showcase some of our assets, some of our clusters, our innovation hubs, but also a lot of the leading businesses that are really driving innovation for Norfolk and Suffolk. A little bit of background about the Innovation Board. We formed the Innovation Board back in 2015. I think it's now one of the only sort of real forums that brings together all, and I do mean all, of our universities and research hubs that are based in Norfolk and Suffolk. It brings together all of our key innovation hubs and research centres, and it brings together all of our key research parks and leading businesses as well. So it really does bring the whole of the innovation landscape together. We meet a number of times a year, at least 4 times a year, sometimes more, depending on if there's something specific we need to talk about. And it really does help shape the innovation research priorities and the landscape that, in terms of support requirements for Norfolk and Suffolk. So we know that our dynamic sectors, we're actually blessed with a number of science research centres. Sometimes we don't shout loudly enough about them. We do. It's the very British thing, isn't it? Hiding our light under a bushel in many respects. But we're now coming out from behind the curtains, really showcasing some of our innovation assets, but how they can work with our universities, with our business communities to deliver really game-changing innovations, game-changing projects that put us very much as a region at the forefront of delivering net zero and encouraging clean growth. So as I said, the Innovation Board, it has all of the region's universities, all of the innovation hubs. So we have the University of East Anglia, the Norwich University of the Arts, the University of Suffolk. We have a number of our innovation hubs. So we have Orbis Energy, our Clean Energy Innovation Centre. We have Hethel Innovation, covering both the Hethel facilities and the Scotto Enterprise Park, 2 of our key EZ sites. We've got the Norwich Research Park with the collection of research centres. So the John Innes Centre, the Earlham Institute, Codram Institute, and a whole range of over 150 innovative businesses. All of our research centres, including CFAS, for the UK headquarters for the Centre for Environment, Fisheries and Aquaculture Science, the BTs at Dastrel Park. We have Innovate UK, and I know we've got Howard and Ian joining us today. So we're really, really pleased that Innovate UK are part of that landscape. as well as some of our local authority colleagues around economic development, really ensuring that the role of local authorities and the wider public sector is properly there at the table in terms of innovation as well. The innovation board there, we created it to really provide a focus for really what was the industrial strategy, and in terms of government policy, that's been updated towards the Build Back Better plan, or plan for growth, and Ian might touch on some of the aspects of innovation in a moment or two. But the previous industrial strategy identified 4 key kind of grand challenges that really kind of started to focus on the innovation and technology development priorities. And for us, we've actually interpreted that around what does that mean for Norfolk and Suffolk? And actually, it was the Innovation Board that helped to first set out some of the 3 high growth priority areas around clean energy, agri-food and farming, and digital and technology, underpinned with that cross-cutting theme of advanced manufacturing engineering as well. So we identified that back in 2015, and even now still we see these are the high growth sectors, the high growth opportunities for Norfolk and Suffolk. So again, innovation absolutely at the core. So innovation and research now is really embedded in so many of our sectors, not just the big 3 high value, but all of the economic sectors that we cover, all of which are in our economic strategy and soon to be updated with our economic renewal plan, which if you haven't seen or read about, please go to the LEP website and engage, because we really want to engage with business to make sure that we are dealing with it and addressing the priorities for growth. But as I said earlier, innovation is embedded in the majority of our sectors. It's absolutely imperative that we really harness all of those innovation assets, our research assets, to really deliver against clean growth and the priorities around net zero. We believe very clearly that the priorities and the foundations are in place here in Norfolk and Suffolk, hence why we've positioned Norfolk and Suffolk as the UK's clean growth region, really bringing together and building on that rich asset and strength in energy, food, digital and climate science that, again, we have some world-leading capabilities on, both at the University of East Anglia and elsewhere. So we're setting down that challenge in the strategy and looking at harnessing clean growth, and what does that really mean for business? And innovation genuinely, and I'm not saying this because we're on an innovation conference and today, but innovation genuinely is at the heart of what the LEP does. In the way we think, the way we do business, the way we look to break down barriers, break down silos and connect the dots. And we look at how, sectors working with each other. So cross-sector innovation is quite often an overused term, but we're kind of breaking down the barriers, looking at how do we encourage our construction sector to work with our energy sector, to work with our food production sector, to work with our transport sectors. How can we look at genuinely that cross-sector fertilization and innovation? We believe there are some seriously significant opportunities if we can just start breaking down those barriers and getting sectors and clusters sharing best practice, sharing ideas, and sharing lots of the assets and facilities that are supporting those respective sectors. One thing that we don't often talk about around innovation is our enterprise zone offer. And again, in Norfolk and Suffolk, like many other parts of the country, we have a number of enterprise zones. We have 10 in Norfolk and Suffolk, and they are badged Space to Innovate. So not only is it we have our innovation centres, our innovation hubs, our research centres, we've got 10 dedicated areas with incentives to encourage businesses to locate, to grow, to move into new premises to support their continued growth. And we are one of the second fastest growth area for high growth firms in the country. Again, with more than 50% growth, at least 50% growth in science and research and development employment, compared to the average of about 19% in the UK. So we're way above national average in terms of innovation and research spend. The whole of the east of England, certainly with Cambridge, Essex and Hertfordshire as well, is one of the biggest single drivers in the whole of the UK for innovation spend. And that's something we hopefully will see continuing over the next few years. Now, I just want to talk about connecting innovation, connected innovation, and quite literally connecting the dots. It's a theme that you'll start to see much more of coming through a lot of what we do in the LEP. And again, continuing that theme of breaking down barriers, getting the sectors working much more collaboratively and cohesively. And connected innovation is quite simply about connecting the dots. And anybody who knows me well knows I'm a big fan of breaking down barriers, breaking down the silos, connecting dots that sometimes it's quite easy to see where the connection should be. Sometimes it's connecting dots where others perhaps need to be a little bit more brought with us along that journey. And those that know me really well know that I like to be a bit disruptive now and again when the need arises. So in the last 18 months, we've spun out a couple of our own innovative startups that are changing the game in hydrogen and some of the net zero technologies. But there's this saying, kind of the whole being greater than some of its parts. Again, it's quite a common phrase, something we believe in, but it's the power of collaboration, the power of building on each other's strengths, especially whether it's the business community or innovation hubs, our research community, and how we build a genuinely connected innovation landscape and innovation ecosystem. So that's why I'm really, really pleased. It's been a sort of 18 months, 2 years in the design phase, but now to launch our Connected Innovation project is genuinely really exciting. So what is Connected Innovation? It is a new program. It is simply joining the dots. So it's developing a joined up offer, both and program of support activities and events and other activities that you'll see much more of over the coming months. But connecting up our innovation centres, connecting up our research centres with our universities, with our test and demonstration assets, but opening up access and making it much easier for business, for individuals, for entrepreneurs to access that huge array of support. And quite often, if you're in one sector, if you're in, say, the agricultural sector, your first point of contact might be an agricultural innovation hub. And that's great, but actually, if you've got a digital technology, that digital tech, digital tech could be, find opportunities in energy, in offshore, in other sectors. And we have unfortunately seen opportunities missed because we hadn't connected the dots, and we hadn't promoted digital innovation or innovation in one sector and brought that and ideas from other sectors where we know that technologies or similar technology has been developed and tested. So we really want to connect the whole of the landscape, not only connecting our innovation hubs, our partners, to get those kind of discussions moving in terms of genuine collaboration, but making it much easier for businesses to access that kind of support. So we will be creating this kind of virtual super network that really brings together kind of our innovative business communities with our universities, with our innovation hubs, our research assets, that are literally connecting up the landscape and connecting the dots. So the project is being led by the LEP, so very much by a new member of the team, so Scott Cogman, who's on the call. He's turned his camera off now though, so there we go, wave Scott. Welcome, Scott. Scott forms part of the team headed up by Julian Munson, and we've got James Allen on the call as well, and Katie Snell, who's not on with us today, but all fantastic members of our innovation and enterprise team at the LEP. Our primary delivery partner in the program is Tech East. So I think you've all know, or certainly all heard from Tim already this morning, and Bridget as well, who'll be supporting a lot of the activity, the events and business engagement activities of the whole program. And it will be directing and reporting both into the LEP's innovation boards, but also the Industry Council for Digital Tech. So again, starting to connect the dots, and there'll be regular updates to the industry councils around all energy, agri-food, and other sort of LEP related sub-boards and other forums to again start connecting those discussions. I want to say upfront a big thank you actually to both the Norfolk Strategic Fund and the Suffolk Inclusive Growth Fund. They are the two funds that are funding Connected Innovation in partnership with the LEP. So really, really fantastic that we can start to launch and re-engage with business on this program. So far, we've got 12 of our regional innovation hubs and centres of excellence already signed up, already joined up to be an active part of the program. We've got new centres that are being built. We've got our new food innovation centre that will be hopefully opening in a few months' time, if not too far away. And we'll be looking at new innovation assets and facilities joining the program over the coming months. So watch out for much more information from the whole program and the team, especially Scott. He'll be your point of contact for Connected Innovation going forward. But just to focus on the benefits a little bit, conscious of time, so I'll be handing over back to Tim in a second. But the benefits to business. So we want to create this strong, vibrant innovation network. We want to connect the landscape, break down barriers, drive cross-sector innovation, but encourage and facilitate this cross-sector innovation. But how can our Clean Energy Centre genuinely collaborate with agri-food or new digital technologies that analysing complex engineering projects? How do we promote our regional innovation strengths, not just in Norfolk and Suffolk, but to the globe? How do we put our innovative businesses on the international stage? How do we attract, it's about attracting new investors, supporting new and innovative startups, and fostering a whole culture of innovation and collaboration. And it's really about helping to solve tomorrow's challenges today. Because tomorrow's challenge in terms of net zero, we haven't got very long. We haven't got until 2050 to deal and start delivering against net zero. We need to start doing that now. So when we talk about solving tomorrow's challenges today, it's really today's challenges today when it comes to net zero and harnessing clean growth. The last thing I'm going to mention is our innovation prospectus. And I'm hoping that I'm looking very much at Julian and James on the call. So if we can put, or Tim, if we can pop a direct link into the chat, that would be really helpful. But everything I've talked about today, whether it's our innovation hub, some of our leading businesses, whether it's the likes of Lotus Cars, Tropic Biosciences, or Rainbird AI, many, many others, all of them are profiled in our brand new digital innovation prospectus. It starts to bring together all of our assets, really showcases some of what we've got to the wider world. And hopefully, it's something that you can use as well to say that you're proud to be part of this innovation ecosystem that we have here in Norfolk and Suffolk. I've talked a lot about innovation, talked a bit about net zero, talked about a bit around clean growth and positioning for Norfolk and Suffolk. And I'm going to stop there because I'm conscious of time and hand back to Ian. But in terms of a really nice segue, I'm really pleased that Ian Meikle has joined us from Innovate UK. So Ian was actually one of our guest speakers for the last big in-person event we had talking about innovation and clean growth back in March 2020, which feels like a very long time ago now. But it was the 3rd of March, 2020. So it's the last major in-person event at Norwich Research Park, all around innovation. Since then, I am delighted that Ian actually has been back to the region. He might have a little story to tell, but when we were catching up last week, telling me about his recent family holiday to Alton Broad. And there is a really good hook in the reason I'm saying this, because we've also, Ian took the family to some of the fantastic new facilities at Carlton Marshes, a LEP-supported project, and that project itself, for me, is a really great example of innovation from a different perspective. Innovation in nature, in looking at natural environment, how we encourage and improve biodiversity, how we encourage and facilitate local tourism, but also importantly around clean growth. We're supporting emissions reduction through what's called re-wetting of peatland soil, improved site stewardship. So actually, we've got a major natural environment project encouraging local tourism and tourism from around the country, and it's reducing emissions. So really nice. It's not a technological innovation, but ecological innovation, absolutely to the max. So we need lots of that and all the technologies. With that, I'll shut up. Thank you very much for listening to me waffle on. Tim, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Johnathan. I think you've just articulated very clearly the sense of urgency that I think we do all feel as part of this innovation community of tackling these major challenges. And I'm certainly very proud of the work that's going on across the region, really stepping up to the plate and leading within the UK on innovation, particularly as regards net zero, but I mean across the board. And I think your point about connecting the dots is key here. And one of the main things we need to do, I think, is to get our house in order regionally and locally, as we are doing through this program, through connected innovation and all the fantastic work that's going on, but also to connect to the centers of influence and funding and support across the UK. The UK is clearly quite a small place, but we need to really, really work hard to make sure that as a region and as businesses that we are connecting to particularly Innovate UK. And therefore it's my pleasure to bring Ian Meikle to the stage. And Ian Meikle, if you haven't met Ian, is Director for Clean Growth and Infrastructure for Innovate UK. I'm really pleased to have you here, Ian. Welcome to the stage.
Very good, thank you. Sorry, just rearranging my screens a little bit. And thank you, Johnathan. Yes, I'm delighted to be here. You're right, I did spend a week during the half term in Lowestoft at an Airbnb, sort of backing onto the estuary there, which was rather wonderful. Did a bit of paddleboarding down Alton Broad, and as you say, I did a walk around. Is it Charlton Marshes? Yeah, really appreciated the sort of nature focus there. So yeah, I had a really wonderful time, and obviously went up and down the coast a little bit as well. So although I'm going to focus this morning on innovation for net zero and sort of clean growth, I'll also touch on sort of COVID response as well, and pretty much all the material reads across to other sectors as well. But of course, I'll make no apologies for reminding everyone that to hit net zero, we need to build net zero into all sectors to hit this zero target. So so with that, let's push on with the slide deck. And you're right, it's pretty much my last speaking event before we went into lockdown. Sort of last year, it might have been the last time I wore a suit, possibly. This is a little reminder of the past there. And I seem to remember we had the mantra of washing hands and carrying on, and we thought that would all be fine. But here we are. So it's really lovely to be back at sort of as we're sort of re-emerging again from the pandemic. And I know companies, and I'll say a little bit more in the region, have been responding to that. So I think let's take a global look at this. We're in a sort of, I guess, global R&D arms race. With innovation as potentially as the lifeblood of the economy, and arguably with respect to climate change, innovation is crucial to our very survival. Innovation keeps the economy relevant, at the forefront, and prosperous, and also enable us to take a leadership position in tackling climate change and net zero as well. And I often say, look, there's two ways of achieving net zero. Once you've set the target, you can either import solutions, or actually you can bolster UK supply chains and actually have UK solutions. And I think I prefer the second of those. Let's get UK companies innovating, or UK-based companies. They can be international companies, that are doing their R&D, building manufacturing capabilities here in the UK. But let's get it anchored in the UK. Let's get the jobs off the back of that. The reality, of course, is it will be a blend. But actually, the sort of phrase that we use really is, let's get the percentage of UK content up. Let's get a high percentage of UK content in the net zero solutions of the future. And of course, that doesn't mean we don't collaborate with other nations. We've got to inspire UK companies to respond to the challenge, but both nationally and also to give us a seat on the global stage. And of course, that global stage will be in Glasgow at COP26 this November. And one of my hats at the moment is sort of showcasing UK innovation at that event. Not just the showcase aspects, but also part of the negotiation to show what can be done. So that's really important as well. Well, in fact, the UK is already quite good, 5th globally by this particular measure. So, which drives prosperity. But let's also remember that, we're only 1% of the global population. So export is important too as well. So as much as we want that UK content, we can be a first mover, and then we can, export and, get some growth off of the back of that as well.
Ian, could I butt in to say that your slides aren't advancing from
Are
our
they
point
not
of view?
advancing? Oh, that's not very good. Well, you've
Pains me because I put the work in.
Okay. And so which slide are we on at the moment?
We're still on your opening slide, the title page.
And you can't see the moving at the moment?
No. Any tech support out there can help with this?
Ian, what I suggest, if it's is restart the presentation, see if that works, and if it doesn't, you might need to come out of the room and back in. I have seen that work before. Yeah, give it a yeah. We're seeing Innovate East 20. Yeah, good.
Okay, well there you go. That was the slide with my last suit wearing. Here's something on innovation for prosperity. This is the 5th in the global index, and now we're on this side. So apologies for that. And there's a real need to build back after the pandemic, as Johnathan mentioned. There's this Build Back Better, this sort of government response. And Innovate recognises, we've got a part to play in that as well, in simplifying the innovation offer to businesses. And we've got a new chief executive in Indra Mukherjee, who's actually driving us towards that. That's very much part of his. He recognises we're trying to do lots of things, but actually getting that messaging clearer out to the businesses we support is really important. And as Johnathan mentioned, it's great to see you locally, you know, the LEPS New Innovation Prospectus and the Connecting Innovation Programme, you know, helping to build connections in the region. And for our part, you know, at Innovate UK and with our partner organisations, we have a no wrong door policy. So hopefully you found us all very friendly, and we'll, you know, if you've knocked on the wrong door or the wrong email box, we'll pass you around as well, so that you do get to the right place. But as I say, you know, that's okay for now, but we're trying to build a, you know, much slicker view of this. So just in terms of numbers, and these don't really tell the story. Yes, the input metric is, you know, since we started, 4.6 billion invested. I think more importantly, what we've contributed to the economy, you know, around about 21 billion and 100,000 jobs. But of course, it's the response to the societal challenges that's really important. The stories behind this often, and I'll cover a little bit of those in the case studies. And you know, locally companies have done well, and it's really good to see that 2/3 of the funding that's gone to the region is to SMEs, and I think that highlights and accords with what you've said, Johnathan, that, you know, supporting the high growth the companies that you've mentioned, and with particular strengths in you know, manufacturing, materials, mobility, and smart funding and clean growth. And to give you a sort of an example of some of the companies, BA Systems, for instance, a family business with over 30 staff. I mean, these are great examples of COVID response that make handrails and balustrades that are resistant to COVID-19. So it really shows, you know, the agility of a business to respond to the needs. We've got Keynote, based at the epicenter at the Haverwell Research Park. You mentioned some of the facilities, Johnathan. I think it's really important to highlight, you know, this company using that have developed an antiviral film that can be used in diverse applications, like on banknotes, keyboards, or lift buttons. Actually, I always worry about pressing buttons, your PIN number, or on the lift. Actually, at the moment, I really noticed that, and being often use my elbow sometimes if I can. So it's really good to see some tech coming along for this. And again, you know, one of your facilities, I'm not going to steal Colour Fixes, I think they're going to speak later presentation, but, you know, Norwich Research Park, Colourfix have developed an antiviral fabric using microbiology, material science, and nanotechnology, which can be used in hospitals to stop the spread of COVID-19. So I'm sure Colourfix will say a little bit more about that later. But, you know, really good to see companies in the region, you know, responding to the pandemic, pivoting often to respond to societal needs, as I said earlier. So, sort of a bit more broader now about some of the support that we offer. I mean, often at the heart of innovation is collaboration. And there are some resources to be able to help you in our partner organizations, and I know a number of these will speak later. So KTN, I mean, if you want to find like-minded innovators or get in touch with complementary sectors, you know, other sectors, digital, sensors, quantum, might be able to help you, you know, with some of the challenges that you've got. Or maybe business support that you need, particularly around scaling your business, securing finance, or identifying new markets. Then in that case, please contact the recently rebranded Innovate Edge. Or KTP, if you have a problem to crack and you need some academic expertise, KTP is a really good place to go. And just to kind of emphasize this, I mean, the UK invests about 8 billion in the science space annually, you know, and as we all know, it's highly ranked globally. And it's a resource, you know, you as business people should feel is available to you. So please do check out the KTP program if you've got a particularly tricky problem that you want to crack, and it may be that you partner with them and, you know, utilize some of their facilities or use some of the facilities that Johnathan's talked about as well. And just a little insight here is, you know, the program is slightly undersubscribed, which of course means, you know, potentially high success rates as well. So that's often a good one to understand about. And then, of course, we've got Caspults and Agritech centres. If facilities and expertise are what you need. I know Andy's based at Orbis Energy, but it's actually Catherine that's representing today. And I think, Catherine, you're going to be talking about some of the O&M opportunities, which is a real opportunity, as our wind fleet gets built out, just to the east of you, it starts coming into how we're going to operate and maintain this fleet as effectively as possible. And with respect to the agri-tech centres, in the region, you've got NIAB, Rothamsted, and Cranfield are all partners in the agri-tech centres, which I know is a strong suit of the region. So best to link up via those organisations. And obviously, Catherine will say a little bit more about the offshore renewable energy catapult with its base here. Well, what again, this driving high UK content, that's the idea, within the offshore sector. Helping develop the next generation of wind turbines, greater than 10 megawatts that we're seeing people like GE and LM, the blade manufacturer, started to develop, and securing manufacturing here in the UK, as we've seen, with LM recently as well. So those are the sorts of things that we're trying to do in that centre. But Catherine will give you some further insights, I'm sure, a little later on. And in terms of funding currently available, smart grants are open to all innovators. It is highly competitive. The current round does close at the end of August. So please do look out for the smart grants. But of course, there's lots of other opportunities going on as well. So please do go and take a look at the webpage, see what funding is available, which include a programme we're running for Ofgem at the moment to transition the electricity and gas networks into net zero as well. So please do go and have a look at those. And if you're thinking, oh, actually, I need some inspiration this morning, I've got some 3 examples of projects. I guess I've sort of labelled them big, small, and going global, but that's probably boxing them a little bit too much. But the first one here is Arrival. It's a little bit of a poster child for us at the moment. They came along to the staff conference recently and thanked everyone for the support. This is an example of a growing company. They've got a stock exchange valuation of 3 billion. And it really highlights what a big deal this is. Sorry, to highlight what a big deal this is, I'm going to sort of paraphrase what Autocar said earlier this year. They said something along the lines of the British van industry has never properly recovered from losing Ford Transit production to Turkey in 2013. But this could change with Arrival, a multi-billion-pound startup company. So what we have here is a new sector emerging from the ashes of a previous industry. This could literally transform white van man, set a new bar. This is kind of the new standard in delivery vehicles. They also do buses as well, actually. And others will need to innovate, of course, to catch up. So they're really a driving force in transforming the sector. And this is, exactly the sort of thing that we want to be able to see off the back of our funding. Although this is my small example, it's in response to a big problem. And it also touches on, a broader aspect, in terms of if we're going to crack net zero or any of our other societal challenges, we need a range of ideas and approaches from a diverse range of people. And we have a number of programs that tackle this. A few years ago, we realized that only 14% of the applications for innovation funding to us were from women. It's now just over 20 because we've had a targeted program called Women in Innovation, but it's still not high enough. So that's one of our programs. And another of our programs is Ideas Means Business, which is where this example comes from, where we're encouraging young innovators. And in this particular example, microplastics are a big problem, as regularly highlighted by Sir David Attenborough, and also the surfers at the G7 conference a month or so ago, highlighting the cause of ocean plastics. And what Adam has done here, it has developed a new filter to reduce microplastics. Yeah, I can't even say that. Microplastics in water systems. And wouldn't it be great, now that we have the tech, that this becomes at least a de facto standard, or potentially moved into regulations such that we remove microplastics from washing machines and those sorts of things. And with the ambition of encouraging more women to innovate, it's really good to see that in the last round of Ideas Means Business, all 4 of East of England winners were women. And there they are pictured there. And then bottom left, an example one, Penelope Roberts, she's a PhD student from the University of Essex. She's got a company called Robo Nurse NHS, and it aims to provide socially aware robotic companions for people at home, in hospitals, or in care situations. So it's really good to see these ideas coming through. And globally, how do we partner with developing countries to help respond to their climate challenges? And this is one of the ones we're thinking about showcasing at COP26. So this is an example, from Rwanda, where solar hot water heating was mandated by the government, but the products on the market just weren't suitable or practical for the local situation, until Solaris Kit came along with this flat pack solution that responds to the challenge. So, how do we help, businesses in those regions actually respond to local challenges? So hopefully I've inspired you with lots of examples of companies responding to net zero, and we need this. We need, frankly, many individual companies, and I've come with, whether it was Johnathan or Tim that said, we need it now, and we need it growing. We need a groundswell here. We need them collaborating and growing, but how do we put a structural wrapper around this too? We don't need lots of things. Well, yes, we do need things pepper potted together, but we also need to bring it together. And one of the most exciting things that we've kicked off recently is that Ofgem have asked us to run their up to £1 billion program over the next 5 years to transform the electricity and gas networks to be fit for net zero. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier when I was talking about some of the competitions that are going live at the moment. And ideally, we can start working in a model like this, where BEIS, set their policy of where they want to go. Things like the 10-point plan that the government has announced over the last 5 or 6 months. Work with Innovate UK to set innovation challenges for businesses to respond to those policy directions. We will then work with Ofgem to trial these things at scale. And if they work, how do we then set the regulations in place that this is the new standard? And so that's the sort of model that we're trying to build. And what we want to do is, not just and scale up as well. Not just one-off demonstrators. So this middle bit is around the scale-up investment. How do we build confidence, with investors, as we go, such that they will invest in these, and we get not just the first of a kind demonstrator, but the second of a kind, the third of a kind, and ultimately build this into business as usual across our networks to make sure that we do get the charging infrastructure that we need for our electric vehicles, that we can actually transition to this hydrogen economy that we're talking about. So that's one of our big pushes. How do we actually get the alignment across government and regulators? So hopefully you can see the critical, the innovation is critical to net zero and also to other sectors. I've also highlighted in response to the pandemic, and how important it is that we utilise UK talent and creativity to keep our economy, at the forefront of finding, financing, and implementing the necessary solutions. And for now, thank you, Tim. I think
Thank you.
you.
Ian, terrific. Johnathan, your hand is up. Am I? Oh, it's not.
No, I thought I was supposed to do a reaction, so it should be clapping hands. So
that's clapping hands. All right. Okay. Well. Let's a virtual round of applause for Ian. And as ever, I'm always sort of bowled over by the range of support activities and opportunities there are across Innovate UK. There is a lot there to digest. I know Howard Partridge is here on the call and has been posting regularly in the chat. There are lots of links. Innovate UK is a kind of world that one can explore in depth, and there have been previously, as Ian mentioned, some really great conferences face-to-face here in the region. We hope to welcome Innovate UK back next year in full for more of for more in-depth presentations. But there are lots of people from the Innovate UK family here today. Ian, I thought you did a great job sort of not only providing an overview, but I think picking out this theme around this particular project, Connected Innovation, that the tools to innovate are there for business irrespective of your postcode or where you are in the region. You mentioned the new epicenter in Haverhill over in the Western Suffolk. I mean, that's, it's fantastic to see already the startups there, like Keynote, for example, gaining quite a lot of traction and attention. So again, very much in the spirit of joining the dots. And I know that the team at the Leopard would absolutely, agree with this. It's all about kind of it's spreading the love and spreading awareness and spreading the capabilities to innovate right across the region. I think also your point made at the end about with the Ofgem program about the correlation between the activities of Innovate UK in kind of seeding some of this kind of risky early stage innovation to build confidence with investors and with private sector investment, with private equity is absolutely key. And, there is the community here as we'll go through the day of that, access to both, the Innovate UK dimension, but also we'll start to talk, I think, about some sort of access to other types of finance and funding to help you scale. So fantastic overview. Thank you, Ian. And as I say, Innovate UK will be around all day to answer questions in the chat. So if there's any burning questions, do put them in the chat. But we're now coming to the end of sort of section one. So section one is very much that perspective, that context. What do we mean by innovation? What do we mean by clean growth? And what are some of the key tools available regionally and locally? But now we're moving into the second part, which is a focus on businesses and a showcase really of some fantastic case studies of businesses in the region who are innovating in different ways, different products and markets, but who are drawn from the various hubs around the region. And it's my pleasure to introduce Angus Thompson as our first business speaker. Angus is the founder of Circuit Builder, based at Innovation Martlesham, just outside Ipswich at BT's Industrial Park. And he has a new company called EdgeSense. I'm sure Angus is going to tell us all about it. He is an electronic engineer. He's worked for several blue chips and major brands globally, including Dyson and GE. Angus, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thanks very much, Tim. Hi, as Tim said, I'm Angus Thompson. And yes, EdgeSense is a new company or a new sort of a product from my existing company, Circuit Builder. Now, what we're doing at EdgeSense is using machine learning in some really interesting applications. Before I go too much into machine learning and AI and all that sort of stuff, I wanted to show you a slightly random photo of the boiler at my house. Slightly odd sort of change in direction, but it is relevant. A few months ago, I happened to notice that my boiler was making some very funny rattling noises. And as I'm sure you've all experienced, your heart sinks. You think, oh no, how much is this going to cost? So I noticed this, I called out an engineer, and it turns out it was fine. He came and serviced it. What he did say was that it wasn't acting very efficiently, and it would have failed quite soon afterwards. So in spotting this sort of problem and this problem, this new rattle I noticed, I'd stopped any problems before they made the thing break down completely. So that is a sort of a manual example, if you like, of something called predictive maintenance, which is when we're sort of monitoring certain conditions in a bit of equipment to predict faults. So that's really what we're doing. What we're doing at EdgeSense is to initially focus on the manufacturing sector, using machine learning to transform manufacturing by improving efficiency, by reducing downtime, and improving safety as well. So that's really our focus at EdgeSense. In manufacturing specifically, vast majority of manufacturers, as I'm sure you can all imagine, have experienced downtime due to equipment failure. And this costs a huge amount of money and results in your factory floor being taken offline, all sorts of costs incurred. So this is a significant problem, as I'm sure you can all imagine. And this is what we're aiming to solve with our platform. So what we are building is a hardware and a software platform that uses machine learning and really advanced analytics to stop these breakdowns, detect problems before they turn into real show-stopping issues, so that you can fix something before it goes wrong, essentially. So what this does is provide 24 hours a day monitoring for any bit of equipment. It could be a wind turbine, it could be a air conditioning unit, and it'll alert you if something, if a problem is detected. And as I said, the applications are huge, not just in manufacturing, but across loads of other sectors too. So the actual equipment itself looks like this. On the left here, you can see the hardware part of the equation. This is the custom design. What this is a set of sensors and a very powerful microcontroller. Now, this basically does what I just described in my boiler example, but does it automatically itself. This will gather lots of data on the bit of equipment it's attached to, whether it's a boiler or a wind turbine or anything in between. It gathers all this data, whether it's a vibration or sound, and then we use a third-party platform. We use currently a company called Edge Impulse, really interesting company themselves. And what that does is it takes this raw data and sends it into a machine learning model, which we can then run on the hardware itself. So every few minutes, the hardware will wake up, listen to vibration or the sound of this bit of equipment, so it could be a boiler, and say, oh, that's normal, I'll go back to sleep. If it wakes up and detects a new rattle or a new squeak or a new subtly different vibration, it'll say, oh, something's a bit different, don't know quite what yet, but something should probably be looked at. And so it alerts the user via a smartphone or even a smartwatch, so you can take a look at your conveyor belt or your wind turbine before it turns into a problem that might cause your entire factory to grind to a halt, for example. So that's what we're building. That's all very well, but there's further things we can do with this, and that's where we sort of get to the next stage of this, which is even more exciting. So in the first phase, what we're doing, we're focusing on the manufacturing sector. We're using this hardware to gather this data and provide insights into some of this equipment, whether it's for example a wind turbine. What we can do with that, however, is much deeper. So we're gathering all this data with these sensors that we will be deploying across all sorts of areas. We can use the actual value of that data even more efficiently. And that's where the second phase comes in. Whereas the sort of first bit is basically gives you a predictive maintenance tool which says something's wrong with this bit of equipment, you should probably come and take a look. We can go even further with this data, with the value of the data we're gathering, not just to say something's going to go wrong or something's acting not particularly efficiently, but exactly what was about to go wrong. So, in this example here, we've gone from what we're working on now, which is something's wrong with your conveyor belt, you should probably come take a look, to a particular bearing in this particular piece of equipment will fail within a week. We're going to order a spare part for you. So it's that really interesting insight, not just into something's about to go wrong, but what is incredibly exciting. And it has applications, as I mentioned earlier, it has applications in any sector, which is the really, really exciting bit. We're using manufacturing as our first sort of focus, but longer term, we can apply this to essentially anything that moves. And that sort of some of the mission statement for this part of the business really is a bit of a grandiose statement. But what we're doing with this is to gather this data, so essentially to improve the efficiency, safety, and reliability of any mechanical system on the planet, which I appreciate is a very wide, very grand statement. But you can imagine that anything moves, any piece of machinery can be monitored in this way. And we can use this technology, this predictive technology, to say to the owner or to the maintenance manager, whoever it is, with the data we have, or which we are gathering now, we can predict what will go wrong and when. So you can imagine a world where mechanical things just don't go wrong anymore, because we can predict before they do, and essentially fix it before it becomes a problem. Now, I've used examples from wind turbines, from the boiler in my house. There are even more far-reaching uses. There was, I'm sure you will probably remember, the Potter's Bar rail disaster, and this is a few years ago now. But this was a preventable accident. This occurred, there was a set of faulty points outside Potter's Bar station. It was noticed the day before of the accident by someone traveling on a train that these points were faulty. They actually reported this, but the maintenance team, because of human error, inspected the wrong points. And very tragically, the next day, it caused an accident. But this sort of proves the point that this is another example of, in this case, a human detecting a problem and saying, we should probably take a look at this because I think there's a fault here. In this case, it led to a tragic accident, but we can use that same technique that I just described, but instead of a human on the part of the loop, and which leads obviously inevitably to human error, we can do this digitally on this little battery-powered piece of hardware deployed on trains, on boilers, on anything that moves, to prevent this sort of thing. And in this case, we could detect that fault and flag up that it's a fault before it becomes a real issue, before, in a very small case, a boiler breaks down, or in a much more tragic case, a train is derailed. We can use this technology to stop or at least significantly reduce the instances of this sort of issue. So it's an incredibly exciting technology, and that's why we're focused on this, and currently doing we're about to do trials with the aim of deploying this very soon. So that's what we're working on. That's EdgeSense. It's quite a brief tour, but I've been Angus Thompson. I would absolutely welcome any questions towards the end when we do the Q&A section.
Thank you so much, Angus. Yeah, we're looking forward hopefully to being able to ask some questions at the end to all the speakers. But Angus, well done for kicking off. Very compelling, I think, the link now between the application of technology and sensors and data and real outcomes around safety, and some of the things you mentioned, Potter's Bar. I think this is one of the themes that's going to come out today. It's solving problems in the real world that are real critical issues, and how innovation has to be relevant. Ian talked about relevance of the economy, and I think that's a terrific start. So thank you very much. Now we are going to move geographically from Martlesham to Norwich Research Park, and we have as our next business focused speaker we have Neil Williamson from Colorifics. Neil is the head of microbial engineering at Colorifics, and is a biotech and drug discovery scientist. So Neil, if you'd like to come to the stage. Neil, the floor is yours.
Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So, well, thank you for inviting me to speak today. As you've said, my name is Neil Williamson. I'm the head of microbial engineering at Colorifics. And could I just check you're seeing the presentation mode? Is that right? Yes,
we can see your full screen. It's all good.
Right. So, minutes, I'm hoping to give you an overview of the story behind Colorifics, why the environmental challenge that we are looking to solve, and how we're going about doing that, and give you a brief overview of Colorifics. So Colorifics was formed in 2016, and it was formed by the now CSO and CEO, Jim Agioka and Or Yokoni, and essentially they were doing research developing an arsenic biosensor, and they were working in Nepal, and they noticed that a significant amount of water pollution was due to the textile dyeing industry. So Jim and Or had a think about this, and they felt we could engineer natural solutions to this man-made problem. So on the left here we have Or Yokoni, and on the right we have Jim Agioka. And as we are based at the research facility is based at in the Innovation Centre at Norwich, and this is in one of our labs there. But Jim and Or had this sort of simple observation that bacteria or microorganisms like to attach to surfaces, and many microorganisms produce pigment. When they attach to a surface, they then deposit that pigment, so it be fabric or plastic. So essentially, Colorifics was born out of trying to solve the problem of reducing the impact of the textile dyeing industry, but also, and based on this observation, that Jim and Or felt we could actually use natural pigments and synthetic biology to help solve that problem. So Colorifix mission statement is to change the textile dyeing industry into an environmentally friendly, socially responsible and economically viable process. So I'm just going to take you through the process now. So Colorifix, we engineer into microorganisms to produce natural pigments. So we can essentially identify the genetic information to make these pigments from the entire sort of kingdom of life. We can identify pigments in bacteria, in fungi, in plants and animals. And using publicly available databases, we search databases, we identify the code, the bits of DNA that we can assemble together to make our microorganism produce the natural pigment. So we clone into the microorganism, and then we do small scale screening, and then we scale up and we essentially grow color. We grow the bacteria to high cell densities in a fermenter and high pigment concentrations. We then use that, the result of that fermentation run is then used in an industrial dyeing process. And essentially the process is the microorganism can transfer the pigment directly to the fabric. And then we have a second step, which raises the temperature, and that kills the bacteria, but also, or the microorganism, and it also fixes. So in one process, we can transfer and fix natural pigments onto fabric. So it's an entirely biological process from the production through to the deposition and fixation onto different types of fabric. And we can apply this to yarn, garments and fabrics. So this slide gives you an example of results from our dyeing scales, where we've grown our colorful bacteria in a fermenter, and then we can dye different synthetic and natural fibers to give us a range of colors from blues to pinks and to sort of mint green colors. So now I'm going to take you through our color development cycle. So I've mentioned we use synthetic biology, and the standard process in synthetic biology is the design, build, test, learn process. And I will take you now through the various steps. We start off with design. So this is computational design. We have a strong informatics team, and bioinformatics led by Helena Saunders, and Michals leads the informatics team, Michals Delman. So we have the design process. We identify a pigment of interest. We confirm that this pigment is a safe pigment. We think it'll be a good potential dye. We then identify pathways and essentially the genetic information, so we can design the pathway. We then go through a build process. So we use a technique called loop, it's a modular assembly process, but essentially the build process is where we essentially put the bits of DNA in the correct order such that we can encode the production of our natural pigment. And we can do this in an automated manner. That was a key choice behind using this particular assembly technique. Okay, sorry. After the build cycle, we go into the test cycle. So here we have testing at the microbial growth stage, but also dyeing performance. So as Ian has mentioned, we have a number of two Innovate UK grants. One of these Innovate UK funded grants is with the Other Institute in Norwich. And here we use the DNA Foundry and the BioLector Pro, which is a way of high throughput screening to find the best conditions, the best nutrients for biomass production and pigment production. So this is a good collaboration with the Earlham Institute, and we can use this to assess different renewable feedstocks. We then move on to the reproducibility phase, and we have enhanced the capability to do up to 10 litre fermentation scale at Norwich. So we essentially show that every time we do it, we get exactly the same pigment production, so we can get consistency when we move on to the dyeing performance. And we've developed our own colorifics fermenters for scale up. So we can go from 30 to 200 to 3,000 litre scale. When it comes to dyeing performance, and I'll just explain, again, going back a step, screening, you'll see for these strips here are what are called SDC strips. So each square you see in there is a different fabric. So using one natural pigment, we can get multiple different colors on our fabrics. So we go for the screening process, and then, as I say, for the fermentation, we do 200 ml scale, and we show reproducibility. That every time we do it for that particular natural pigment, we get exactly the same dyeing performance. And then, as I mentioned, we now to that's an example on the right of 200 litre scale. And then we go into the learn phase of the DBTL cycle, and here we are essentially learning how we can further optimize the strain. And again, this is done through our work with the Earlham Institute. We can do media optimization, so different nutrients. Essentially, you can enhance the production of the natural pigment, and again, process optimization in a fermenter to again improve and make the process robust. Okay, so if we compare the colorifics approach to the conventional approach. So the conventional approach is based on synthetic dyes, petrochemical based, and several synthetic dyes quite toxic. And the conventional dyeing process uses quite high temperatures and again, chemicals for the fixation of the dye pigment to the fabric. There are alternative eco solutions that use, again, engineer bacterial pigment production, but then they have the step of they then extract and purify the pigment, and that leads to a very, again, it's a similar process to the conventional dyeing. Colorifics, as I've mentioned, we engineer our microorganisms to produce natural pigments. We then ship a small vial to the fermentation or the dyeing facility, and then using our process, we use much lower temperatures. So we, as I've already sort of alluded to, we can transfer the pigment directly from the bacteria to the fabric, and then we increase the temperature just a little, and that will then inactivate the bacteria and cause transfer of the color to the fabric. Okay, so this data here is some internal preliminary analysis where we've looked at the performance with dyeing cotton. So you'll see that we have 68% reduction in use liters of water per kilogram of fabric, and 70% reduction in steam and electricity uses. So this is internal data that we are now currently validating externally, and this was, I'd say, based on cotton. So if you like, the next stage is to essentially validate our dyes, our dyed fabric. We use things like Ecotex 100, so that there's no toxic chemicals in our process. We test fabric to confirm that there's no allergenicity from our process, or no cytotoxicity, and color fastness. We check the light, washing and rub facets. And I guess the important take-home message is that our dyed fabric meets all these industry standards. Okay, I don't have time today to go into detail of these two Innovate UK funded grants, but as I've already mentioned, the collaboration with the Earlham Institute in Norwich is going great, and this is allowing us to basically accelerate colour development. It's also led on to projects not directly related to the grants, so we're working even closer now with the DNA Foundry at the Earlham. So that's been a great benefit. And then we're also, as Ian mentioned, we are working with the University of Cambridge, because last year we had some preliminary data come back that our dyed fabric had antimicrobial activity, and we are now looking into the antiviral activity, and yes, we're getting some very promising data back. And again, both these Innovate UK funded grants have really helped us to strengthen links with academia, and I think they're both going really, really well. And we also have significant funding from Horizon 2020 from the European Union. So I think that's the end of my talk.
Thank you so much, Neil.
I'd just like to thank the team on screen here. And yeah, this is the Colourfix team at a recent retreat. I didn't mention as well that we have a facility in Cambridge. So we're based in Norwich and Cambridge.
Which I think is a very good, a very good example of what connected innovation actually looks like in practice. Because I mean, the very multidisciplinary nature of what Colourfix does, the melding of biology, of computer science, the way that you've collaborated with multiple institutions, Earlham, with Cambridge, different funding routes, all adding up to this sort of picture of success, I think is, I mean, so this is a great example of how a business that connects can innovate more quickly and go off into some interesting directions that perhaps weren't originally envisaged, but while staying true to that mission. So that's fantastic. Now, our next business focused speaker is Fran Ellington from Triple Bottom Line. Now, we talked about, I think, the sort of multiple routes through to innovation, to net zero, but Fran's going to talk to us about how that can look from the point of view of aligning people, planet, and profitability. So the kind of core business metrics with these other now kind of absolutely fundamental considerations that will drive toward net zero. And Fran, welcome to Connected Innovation, and thank you very much for speaking to us today. So over to you.
Well, thank you very much, because I feel very honoured to be invited here, and I'm fascinated by the examples given at the beginning, but also by the two last presentations. So what I'm doing is I'm representing Triple Bottom Line, which is a digital and cloud-based accounting practice in Norwich, and I am the ESG lead at Triple Bottom Line Accounting. I'm not an accountant. What I'm trying to look at is how we account for planet and people, rather than just counting the beans that lead to prosperity and profitability. And what I like about all these innovations is that they're starting off with our little motto here, I've got in blue, which is a purpose-driven business produces profitable solutions to the problems of people and planet. Whereas, long-term businesses like, accountancy practices, ourselves, and all sorts of manufacturing, we've created lots of problems for people and planet, and we're trying to retrofit this purpose-led idea. So Triple Bottom Line Accounting, after the concept of the triple bottom line in accounting of people, planet and prosperity. So I just want to really quickly whiz through, because I realise we're moving into what was meant to be our comfort break. So a little bit on sustainable business and what that means, talking very quickly about how we can measure our CO2 emissions as a business and to set targets and create an action plan so that we can join in this race to zero. And as was mentioned at the start, it is so important that we should have started this yesterday, not today. And we have very, very little time to get there. 2050 is too long. We need to be looking at 2030, in my opinion. A little bit, very small snapshot of what we're doing at Triple Bottom Line Accounting to meet those targets. And the big thing that we are trying to promote is the idea. It's a counterintuitive for accountants. Accountants like to measure and count things, but what I'm pushing is the power of the narrative. If that narrative is genuinely authentic, then it will encourage others to change and inspire, but it will also encourage your own team to understand why these quite radical changes need to be made. So we're talking about clean growth today, and that tends to be aligned with the UN sustainability goal number 7, which is accessibility to affordable and clean energy. I like to think that it's also 8 and 12, and in fact all of them, because you can't have environmental impact if we're not socially fair as well. So I talk about the fact that sustainable consumption and production is about doing more and better with less. It is also about decoupling economic growth from environmental degradation, increasing resource efficiency and promoting sustainable lifestyles. And you guys all know that because that's what you've been talking about. The big thing that we do with our ESG consultancy is we help businesses, and these are busy small businesses, medium-sized businesses really, is how they're going to get their team on board, how they're going to get their stakeholders on board. I like this graphic from the International Association for Public Participation, because if you inform, consult, collaborate, consent, empower, then you will make sure that your team are proud of your story, and they'll talk to other people about it, and they will come up with much better ideas than you've got about how you can make these very, very radical changes to reach net zero emissions as soon as possible. What we learned from our team was fascinating once they understood why we needed to make these changes. So at Triple Bottom Line, we started off by saying, okay, well, what are we doing already that's quite good? Because of our Triple Bottom Line ethos, we have a large section of our clients are from the environment and sustainability sector. In education, my husband, Peter Ellington, is doing, he teaches on the executive MBA, but at the UEA Business School, but he's also doing postdoctoral work in advocating change to accountancy education. And that's education that's going on by the professional accounting bodies at the universities, but also within other accounting practices. And we're lucky enough that we work in the Enterprise Centre, which is a passive house building, which really reduces our energy consumption. To get our narrative going, we started off by making sure that our team understood the issues around climate change. We gave them an incentive in climate perks, which gives them extra days holiday if they choose to travel on their annual or family holiday by land or sea. It takes longer, therefore you need more time to do it. And we encourage buying local. One of the problems we have, and this is what I want to put out there to the people listening, the innovators, the tech innovators, is that a lot of our carbon footprint comes from the cloud storage, the data centers, the software packages that we use, and that's our biggest proportion of emissions. So I want to talk about that in a moment, but we are lucky that our website is hosted by Green Hosting and uses 100% renewable energy. When we looked at our 2020 carbon footprint, we discovered that our office usage, unsurprisingly, was the smallest section of our carbon footprint. and our purchasing was the largest. So this is what I want to put out there to you innovators, is my idea. We use a lot of our clients use a variety of bookkeeping software packages: Free Agent, Xero, QuickBooks are the main three. Wouldn't it be great if we could have an algorithm that translated those purchases from the different providers, suppliers, into a carbon analysis? So at the end of each day, week, month, year, you could see what your carbon footprint was according to the purchases you made. And this relates to my next slide, which is, for us, our scope 3 emissions, the emissions that are the result of our value chain going up and down, our suppliers, our clients, is our biggest problem. As a small accounting practice, you could argue that our CO2 emissions are quite low at 13 tonnes in 2020, and that included home working, and 1.8 tonnes per employee approximately, but we want to get to net zero. So scope 1 in this pie chart is the small amount of heating that is sometimes needed in the enterprise centre on very cold days in the winter, particularly when the building's empty. Scope 2 is electricity at the enterprise centre that we use. Scope 3 is everything else. That includes commuting, home working, and, as I said, our purchases. So that's what we needed to do. To get to our net zero action plan, we offset slightly more than 13 tonnes. We went to 15 tonnes, and there's a lot of bad publicity about offsetting, because people offset and then they carry on as normal, emitting those greenhouse gases. So to get our past 2060 certification, which is something we're helping our clients to do as well, we had to have a team workshop. We had to understand where our emissions were coming from and create an action plan to get to net zero, and we have to publish it. So you can find our action plan on our website in the footer with all our other policies. Very quickly then, we looked at lots of different things that we could do. Creating a sustainable purchasing policy was, one of the easiest and quickest things that we could do. So we're now looking at suppliers that conserve resources, that have waste minimisation. We try and buy as much as possible locally, and use various organisations to make sure that they score well, to find out this information quickly and easily, including the Carbon Disclosure Project. Our big problem is cloud storage. We use Dropbox, we use Gmail, and we use a variety of accounting software and bookkeeping software, and they're not all powered by 100% renewable energy. And so we can't change those things because there aren't many alternatives that we can feasibly use within our company. So we have to advocate change. So just very quickly then, corporate climate advocacy is one of the most powerful things we can do. So speaking at events like this, but also helping others to helping our clients to get started on this journey as well through our consultancy service that we've now got set up in collaboration with Alistair Wilcock of Meikle. He is a seasoned consultant and also a decarbonisation expert. And we're helping very, very busy small and medium-sized businesses who are so busy fighting the fires, trying to stay sustainable from that economic sense of, keeping afloat financially, that they might not have time to do this. So helping them get the momentum going so that they can create their own impact measurement narrative. We've written our own for 2020. It's already incredibly out of date, but I think it's an evolving, exciting story, at least for us within the business. And I'm going to do a longer and more interactive webinar on Thursday, hosted by the Norfolk Network, where I'm going to go into a lot more detail about net zero and what it means for small and medium-sized businesses. So I'll leave you with the challenge of an algorithm for bookkeeping software, and welcome any questions. Thank you very much.
That's a great challenge, Fran, and please do put the link to the upcoming Norfolk Network event into the chat. I mean, I think you're quite right to say that one would normally associate the idea of narrative with an accounting practice, but clearly, you know, developing that narrative and developing that kind of culture with and the right leadership, but then having the hard data to back that narrative up and demonstrate, you know, as a business how you're performing and how you're moving towards those goals is key. And I thought that was absolutely fascinating, and thank you so much for sharing those thoughts. I realize you didn't have a huge amount of time to get into what is quite a big topic, but yes, do check out the upcoming Norfolk Network event. Next up, our next business focus, our next case study or example, we've had 3 fantastic ones already, is Danny Wyatt, who is Managing Director of EcoLogic.
Thank you very much, Tim. And I'm glad you said that it's quite a visual thing as well, because I've just realised, having heard everybody else's fantastic speeches, quite how many photographs I've put in late last night. So there's probably too many images there, but I'll just kind of rattle through them to a degree. So to build a log cabin now, if you wanted this hand style built sort of log cabin, this is what you do. You physically build it. You build it for something of this size. If you wanted this built on your plot probably couldn't accommodate the physical hand building of it, purely because, as you can see, you got a forklift here that has to drive around and get access to all these kind of logs everywhere. So that's a big physical space in itself. And if you imagine the logs you see in the background here as well, that are laid end to end, the picture goes on at least double that length there as well. So you need a lot of physical space to actually build it, which most people don't have. But yeah, to build it, it's a slow and labor-intensive process. You can see the logs here are rested, ready for the rough notch, and the rough notch is how you can see they're literally sat on the logs they're crossing. The first thing you do is you take a cut out of these logs here, which brings the logs down. So the log's gone on the wall, it's been measured, marked, goes off, gets cut, and then goes back on the wall, slightly lower down, and then you you mark the whole log, you scribe the whole log, which we have a photograph here. This is a set of transfer scribes. And then you take the log off the wall, and then you cut it all out, and then you put it back on. So it's gone up and down on the wall twice, you know. These transfer scribes here literally do that. They transfer a line from the log below to the log above. You set the gap of your scribes here. You can see the spirit levels here. You literally, they're a set of calipers with a pencil on top, basically. So you go the whole length of the log, touching both points, keeping the bubbles between the line, and you end up with a pencil mark there that then shows you what needs to cut out. So you can see it's kind of, it's labor intensive, you know. On a good day, you would probably get 1 log done per guy. And that's, yeah, for building that size, you'd need quite a lot of skilled log builders, and they're pretty scarce here as well. I think I had 6 log builders when I built this place, when I built for a lodge, and it took a year to get all those guys organised in one place. And to be fair, some of them are quite hard work as well, you know, which is an issue you don't really get with a robot, because robots don't like drinking, as far as I'm aware. They don't get hangovers, and they don't get teasy. So yeah, so I'll speed through these a bit. This is how you end up with a building when it's built to entirety. As you can see, the ground conditions are painful as well. Once you've built the log cabin, and then you have to take it down and move it to site and reassemble it. And as you can see, the mud here, physically just getting everything out, it's painful. And once you've done that, you take it all down, you number the logs, 5 lorry loads of logs we had for this place, and then you move it to site and reassemble. So it's quite a process there. You have to physically build it to get it all together, to get it to work, you know. That's the hand building side of things. Okay, that's it going back to site, and that's it being reassembled now. The robotic system is revolutionary to that, really. So this is a laser scanner. These have got lasers. There's 4 laser scanners on this machine here. Passes over the log, and it digitally maps every log. So you can see the 2 logs here have been scanned. Those 2 logs on a screen, you can see how the logs intersect, what you need to cut out of each log to get them to fit perfectly to the millimeter together, and what you need to do. So what happens then is you scan all the logs you CAD designed the building you want to build, and then you scan the logs, and the logs are then cut out by robot. You don't have to physically build this in the yard at all. It's all done on one physical plane. You scan the logs sit there, wait for you to work out what you need to cut out of it, and then you present it to a robot, and the robot cuts out what you need to cut out of the log, and that's it. It can go straight on the back of a truck, straight onto site. There's no need for the physical building of it and taking it down and so on. So it's a game changer. It is a game changer. We've had with our partners in Canada, we had a Canadian MEP wrote a statement for us, and he said it was literally a game changer, is what he said. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm waffling on a bit now. I should rattle through these a bit, shouldn't I? So just to give you some more photographs of all things robot, really. This is something else that our business partners in Canada were doing, which is a spiral staircase. And to build this by hand, I just don't know how you would, to be honest with you. The accuracy of this robot, which is 0.2 millimeters on a log like this, is just stunning. And I don't have photographs of the finished spiral staircase, which I wish I did have, but yeah, no, it's yeah, okay. So I will just click through these photographs now. This is the one building that we had built and installed to our client in Reading I was telling you about. So it all came over in a container like this, lift the panels out and bolt them all together. And there's quite a few of these. So just as I'm clicking through these, I will tell you a bit about the environmental side of this as well, because this is such an eco-friendly product and system. It's incredible. Just the use of timber itself is one of the most sustainable products you'll get. The last load of timber I bought was from Shipdham near Durham, so we're using properly local timber. It's sustainable, it's carbon neutral, carbon's locked in for the lifetime of the wood. From a manufacturing point of view as well, you're using so little energy because the robot just requires nothing really, just a bit of electricity, you know. And being as we are based in Scotto, we're kind of in the middle of one of the biggest solar farms in Britain, is it? I think so. We could be even more eco-friendly from that point of view as well. But yeah, sorry, I'm just I go through these a bit quicker now because I realise I'm taking over my allotted time. Quite famously, once I get talking about log cabins, I'm quite hard to shut up, really. So I'll probably wrap up fairly soon. Just to say as well, this building is probably complete now. These photographs were taken a few months ago, so I should get down there and get some more photographs from him, really. But yeah, just to finish up, this is the new current direction for me as well. This is in the unit at Scotto. So the smaller type buildings, this is a garden office type building. I've always shied away from these because it's a lot of work for the size of building, which is not really kind of feasible to do by hand, but it's feasible for a robot. So that's why we're targeting these now, is to get some of these out there, get the imagery out there, get selling these. This is a smaller glamping type unit as well, which is a big market for me. So the trade show in September, the International Glamping Festival, who'd have known? But yeah, that's there. We'll take one of these to the festival. And yeah, I expect the multiples. That's a knock on of these things as well, is that people want the multiples. The holiday let people, the glamping people, they want 6. 6 is kind of the magic number, which is a nightmare to build by hand because that's a year's worth of work for a robot. A day's work by a skilled log builder, you get 1 log per day per guy. A robot does 3 logs per hour. That's 1 robot, you know, and it's modular. If we get more work, I can buy more robots, you know, off we go. It's not a problem at all. So sorry if I've waffled there. I put way too many photographs in, and I'm going to hand back to you, Tim.
Danny, thank you for sharing the story. And I mean, what struck me was, first, you know, the innovation doesn't usually go in a straight line. And I think you were very honest and open about some of the earlier you know, kind of challenges of collaboration and connecting, but the end results look fantastic. And I know we've all really enjoyed the talk, and love to see these things up close and personal when we get out and about more. But good luck, and thank you very, very much. Now, and so yeah, thanks, Danny. We have one more business focus story for you, and we're going to end on I think with a really great example from within the tech space. And I'm delighted that we have Lewis Owen from Kronos Technology here to talk about the work that Kronos are doing around smart buildings and, you know, other spaces. Lewis, welcome to Connected Innovation.
Oh, thank you very much. So, hi everyone, my name is Lewis. I work for Kronos Technology as an account manager. I can't promise anything as exciting as log cabins today, although I've got a bit of anxiety from planning to build a bird shed on the weekend. So thanks for that, Danny. So a quick intro about us. Kronos Technology have been in the telecoms industry for about 35 years. And as experts in GNSS, which is global navigation satellite systems, we've built an extensive knowledge in a lot of areas and able to apply.
We've lost your audio, Lewis. Lewis, oh yeah, you're back. Sorry.
So yeah, something we're looking at is vulnerabilities, including interference and spoofing of GPS, which kind of led us towards innovation marketing. So the fantastic team down there gave us a really good intro to meet a lot of other businesses, and they also gave us a platform to showcase our smart buildings offering. So this is something we're able to offer, having partnered with a company called MIT Dynamics, and they've been crucial in helping us to be able to do this. So they have a piece of software called Ucentric, and the way Ucentric works is it's installed on a server and it gathers all the available data. Already on a network and pulls it together in one place. So this centralized platform can generate reports, build alarms, and then can also put this out to a dashboard so it's nice and easy to view. The benefit of this is that you can track performance and you can see exactly how your building is operating. You can then go in and set new parameters and measure new continuous performance results. So putting this in real terms, it looks at things like the lights, it looks at the HVAC, it looks at kitchen energy usage and how much energy usage, say, is used on the weekend and where's it going. So let's pretend it's Monday morning and as scheduled, you receive your report of the weekend's energy usage. You're notified that the third floor kitchen has had the oven turned on for 5 hours on a Saturday. And this has been highlighted to you as a trend. It tells you how much energy is used weekly and what this equates to yearly. Now, it won't automate an email to the cleaning staff who are using the kitchen, but it gives you the information you need to consider the overall impact and how this could be managed more efficiently. On screen now is a 3D blueprint, real time, or in this case, a time lapse that shows people movement or energy usage through a building. The traffic light system's a fantastic way. It's a great visual tool to help make informed decisions, set alerts, alarms, or generate reports. Let's say overall you've used 5,383 kilowatt hours in a week, but how do you understand that? So this is Energy Insights. Here's a quick look at the part of the backbone of the system detailing utilities energy usage. It's a great tool to visualize the environmental impact and the building's carbon footprint as well. So it puts into real terms, you know, this week we've used a bit more energy. It's a really good tool as well to look at post-pandemic versus pre-pandemic, how your building's being used, what to expect, and also to kind of predict the future. So it can also, it's also a fantastic tool for supply chains as well, impact reporting and supply chains. It utilizes Excel spreadsheets as well. So if you've got that as a form of input, you're using them as reports, and you can generate a current picture that makes it easier to understand. The advantage of these as well is that it provides mitigation insights, just giving some sort of general ideas of how to pull down your carbon footprint. So if I move on, this is a brief look at the breakdown of our service that we provide. So with MIT's help, we've got this existing data that's already available at the core. And around that, we provide support, provisioning to help you get more insights around the building, have something visual to look at that you can understand as your own. We also help with installation and then training on how to use the system. And also, I think it's important that we consider what information we're not capturing. So things like air monitoring, people counting, and particulates as well. And then each bit of data has a story to tell. So what's the connection between them? So the story soon becomes, you know, I don't know if you've been in a meeting room where you've been there for a few hours and the lighting is possibly a little bit dim, and you start to feel a bit lethargic. So we look at the air composition and say, oh, hang on, 2 hours ago, this meeting room was fine. We've got 10 people in there. We've used a people counting tool that takes a picture of how many people are in the room, uses AI to figure out a number, deletes the picture and keeps the number. So we know 10 people are in this room. After 2 hours of 10 people in the room, we've monitored the CO2 level to have increased by this much. At which point the air conditioning kicks in and just pumps the room full of clean air, so that you get the most out of your people. You give them the best environment to work in. We also consider, where is the air being drawn in the building? Is there a Burger King next door that they've got the fryers on? Particulates are coming inside, and it's an unhealthy environment. So we can determine at what time of the day that's most prevalent, and we can look at other possibilities to take air from different sides of the building. It can also consider vehicle parking. How many vehicles are you using currently? Is your car park full if you have one? And use that to report back in a sustainability report. And this has to come back to IoT in the workplace and look at how can a building evolve. A great example of this is our office, built in the 1920s. It's not exactly what you'd refer to as a smart building, until you start looking at the network and adding sensors as well. It's pictured at the bottom here is just a standard IoT sensor that we'll use, and a smaller version. And these are just powered by USB, and they can tell a huge array of different things about the environment. In our office, we're now able to accurately monitor temperatures throughout the building, including the server room. We have the ability to monitor our capacity within the kitchen and dining area so that we can make sure there's not too many people in here in the current climate, and just make sure there's social distancing. And we can measure the waste we produce and the amount that we recycle. And suddenly your building now becomes a 3D model on a dashboard with information you wouldn't expect to have. And this gives us a real advantage in taking steps to improving our performance. But as I say, this draws back to existing data that we use. We can also use this to monitor the well-being of employees. So whether we monitor how often they overwork rather than underwork. So that's a particular focus to make sure that the staff are healthy and happy, and that their mental well-being is looked after. We can also identify using existing Wi-Fi routers, breadcrumbs and paths that people take throughout the building. From this, we've now developed a track and trace system within the building to say, Sally, who works on the 5th floor, has reported symptoms. Instead of sending the whole building home, we can see in a timeline, who she was next to, which lift she used and who else were in there, what meeting rooms she used, and build a picture as just to say, look, you may have come in contact with Sally, and we can then isolate these few people rather than sending everyone home. This also ties in nicely with building security and resource management in terms of meeting rooms, and just generally having a really good image of what your building is doing and the people in it as well. This uses existing BMS, so building management systems, and data sources too. So whether that's that they look at key cards at entrances, as I say, Wi-Fi routers and devices, you can consider printers, kettles, ovens, lifts, or headsets as well to check background noise. And relating that all back to a carbon footprint report is where you can gain insights to make informed decisions and make sure your company either reaches net zero or better and becomes carbon negative. There is so much of the system that I haven't got time to cover today. However, my details will be made available, whether you prefer to contact me directly or go through LinkedIn, which would be fantastic. If I've shown you something today that sparked interest or curiosity and you'd like to explore it further, please do get in touch and we'd love to teach you more about the system and show you what it can do.
Thank you so much, Lewis. And perhaps you'd like to just drop your LinkedIn profile or email address into the chat, but we'll also be making all the speakers' information and contact details available during or after the event today. So thank you. Thank you, Lewis. So we've heard from 4 very different businesses, all innovating in different ways, all taking different paths to net zero. And thank you to Angus, to Neil, to Fran, to Danny, and finally to Lewis for taking us through that middle section of Connected Innovation today. We're now entering the gallery of support session. So this is all about really, if you're looking to innovate as a business, what are the resources that you can draw on locally, regionally, and nationally to help you on that journey? And so I'm very pleased to say that our first speaker in the Gallery of Support session is from the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult, and it's Catherine York. We heard, hi Catherine, good to see you. We heard earlier clearly about a wide range of things that Innovate UK does, the Innovate UK family, of which your organisation is part of it. But Catherine, if you'd like to talk, the floor is yours to talk about the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult and what you're up to in the region. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So I'll just start sharing some slides as a bit of a prompt.
Great.
So yes, I am here speaking about the Operations and Maintenance Centre of Excellence that's part of the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult, and hopefully tell you a little bit more about what we are up to. Oh, that would be really interesting. Okay, if it suddenly jumps 4 slides, it's because I got a bit enthusiastic with button pressing. To give an idea of the scale of the opportunity and the reason that we see operations and maintenance as such a significant part of a large and growing industry. These graphs represent the overall growth of the industry, but the sections that are in the dark blue at the top, particularly those highlighted in red, relate to operations and maintenance. So you can see that although the huge numbers and particularly the headline figures are associated with the capex of buying the turbines and installing them, that actually grows as a relative, or remains as a relatively steady but large element, whereas operations and maintenance has a 25-year potentially lifespan. So once that you've had that major investment, then there's huge and growing opportunity. So really a sustainable industry. And operations and maintenance, compared with the manufacturing and the installation side of things, is very much homegrown, because it is long-term. It is, by its nature, local to the area that the wind farm's operated in. And from having that body of people maintaining the turbines and the wind farms around the country, We've had a number of successes in companies spinning out or transitioning into the industry or developing to meet some of the growing needs of the industry. And not only the enormous local market, but also large and growing export market. At the moment, the UK is at the forefront in terms of installed capacity of offshore wind, but will soon be outstripped within the next couple of years by the emerging nations like China, like America, like Taiwan, that are looking to massively increase what they're doing, and other countries around the world too. There are lower barriers to entry in operations and maintenance because it doesn't require the large business behind you, the large manufacturing facilities that would be needed to actually build some of the turbines and their components. So the UK is currently the global leader because we were here first and how much we've developed. But operations and maintenance is changing, and we need to secure our stake on that market to really gain the benefits of having been at the forefront and the expertise that we have to share. So the quote there from Innovate UK, that if we don't act now, there will be market failure. So the vision that we have for the UK to be the global leader in smart operations and maintenance. The dark circle that we have at the centre of the UK there represents the physical location of the Operations and Maintenance Centre of Excellence. So we're based in Grimsby, and I'll talk a little bit more about why there. But although we're based in Grimsby so that we have a physical presence and we can really get some focus on operations and maintenance, we connect into everything that ORE Catapult is doing across the country, and we are very much a national organisation with that international influence. So the three strands, the themes that we're operating under that we see as core for development of operations and maintenance, start with next generation operations and control. So that's everything that happens on the shore side or off of the turbines. All of the monitoring and management of processes up until people reach the turbines, or robots and drones in some cases, to do that inspection, maintenance and repair, the work that has to physically happen out on the equipment. And also operations and maintenance decarbonisation, because one of the unfortunate truths about what's essentially a clean industry is that we still have to burn marine diesel in order to get people and parts out to the turbines. We're doing an awful lot of work to get that to change, and considering things along alternative fuels and electric vehicles. So just to give an overview of the wealth of businesses that we've worked with in the O&M field, from the original equipment manufacturers, the owners and operators, all the way through the supply chain and linking academic with business partners. And the ones that are highlighted in red are ones that are all located in the Humber region. And that's part of the reason why the Operations and Maintenance Centre of Excellence is established in Grimsby. You may have heard of the Humber Offshore Wind Cluster. It is the largest and longest established of the regional clusters that are developing as part of the sector deal to really strengthen the local and the regional benefits and the UK impact from offshore wind. We've had wind farms in this area offshore since 2008, and it's just been growing over time. So those that you see there in blue are the wind farms that are actually operating. Those that are green are actively under construction, and both projected to be completed next year. The one in orange, Hornsea 3, is approved, and construction will start on that in a couple of years' time. And those in red are penciled in. They're going through the planning and consenting process at the moment. And in the inset in the right-hand corner are also the round 4 leasing areas that were announced at the beginning of this year. And there are a number that could be accessed from the Grimsby region, or certainly from the East Coast. So just a quick overview of the scale of the operations and the number of people that we currently believe we have employed directly and indirectly within the industry in this region, and how that's projected to grow in the next 5 years, potentially fivefold, as a number of wind farms come online. We're also increasing massively in this area at the moment in our manufacturing capability, with a recent announcement from a South Korean manufacturer of monopoles to establish in Immingham in the Able Marine Energy Park, which is just up the road from here. And returning to the ecosystem that we're attempting to develop within the Operations and Maintenance Centre of Excellence for our focal areas, some of the projects that we are working on developing at the moment are things like an advanced comms network, and that would cover the port region and also a partner operational wind farm, so that autonomous data gathering or inspection systems could be demonstrated at field scale. Also working extensively with a number of collaborators on a net zero port. And that would really tie in with clean maritime, because there's a wider agenda around cleaning up maritime activities, and crew transfer vessels that take people out to wind farms each day with a regular routine route, knowing which harbour they'll be coming back to at the end of the day, are an ideal model for adopting alternative fuels. Because if we put the fueling, refueling infrastructure in one dock, we know that's where they'll be at the end of each day. And they know roughly what they're going to be consuming on each day. So the systems can be sized quite well. Also working around data and data science, and collaborating with this partner operational wind farm that we have an agreement with, so that we can access on a project by project basis live farm scale data that can be used for companies that are developing projects, wanting to prove a concept. And too much detail to go. But just to give a flavour of some of the activity in the area and some of the relationships that are in place, and also how our net reaches much wider than just Grimsby. Working in partnerships with companies like Vattenfall, that you may be aware of from East Anglia, the Orca Hub, some of the universities, that's including some PhD placements, as well as industry academic partnerships and applied studies. A number of benchmarking studies looking at the performance of wind farms and their cable systems, and that's helping industry understand their health, their risk and their exposure, and building some simulation capability. So we have the kernel of a digital operations and maintenance environment, with the idea that robotic systems as a starting point can be simulated. So multiple interacting systems can test their interfaces, whether that's purely software, exchanging handshakes with other software, or whether that's including hardware in the loop, to prove the system from end to end and model it under different scenarios for different operational feedback, say on battery health or location information, through to environmental parameters. So should the sea state change, should the wind be out of limits, how will the systems speak to each other and respond? What decisions will they make, and will they operate safely before they're actually exposed to field trials? So this is where we are based and where I'm actually sitting at the moment. We have the first floor of the ABP Port Office at the entrance to the docks in Grimsby. And we're here because of that list of wind farms that I showed you earlier on, because there is a critical mass of businesses operating in this area with their operations and maintenance teams. So we're on the doorstep for demonstrating, showcasing and building those relationships. And the idea of the building is that we will use it as a collaborative space. So we will be able to host people to spend some time here if you want a presence within the area, a base for making those connections, or facilities for actually showcasing what you're working on at the time, or getting feedback and engagement from industry on how it should be developing. So I don't really have time to go through all of the different projects that we're going on, but some of them might surprise you a little bit because they're going away from the direct technology enhancements of the performance and reliability of wind farms and enhancing the safety, that's our traditional area, looking at co-location of projects. How can we reap more rewards from a patch of seabed that at the moment is almost exclusively within the control of the wind farm operator? So aquaculture is an emerging area of interest so that we can generate further economic activity in coastal areas where maybe they've seen their fishing economy suppressed. How we can get better returns from what's happening, but also with minimal environmental impact, or at least minimal negative impact, because actually we can be enhancing the biodiversity of a region if things are developed suitably. There's already known to be a reef effect of offshore wind farms that anecdotally is reported by fishermen and anglers as having enhanced the fish life in the area and improved catches of crabs, of lobsters and of fish. And so that's something that could develop in a synergistic way along offshore wind farms, but there's still some practicalities to get to the bottom of exactly how you mesh a fishing industry with effectively a power utility type industry and get them working cooperatively alongside each other. We're also working on some projects around radar and looking at how we could mitigate the impact of wind farms on radar for both defence and commercial aviation purposes. The pipeline of CMDH refers to the net zero port and looking at clean maritime. And we're working with the local economic partnerships for some of the other projects that I've mentioned. And we have good connections throughout operations and maintenance, including a forum with owners, which is a safe space for them to be able to discuss what their issues of the day are and how they're tackling them and share their ideas, thoughts and improvements, showcasing different activities and so on. And so if you want any more information, these are our generic contact details. People are also welcome to contact me directly and I can provide my details within the chat now. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. That's absolutely fascinating. I think the, unexpected sort of parts of the innovation ecosystem around offshore renewable energy. I mean, you talked about the reef effect of fishing, but you also talked about 5G, robotics, data. So clearly, as a region, east of England, Norfolk and Suffolk, we have this, sort of exceptional natural resources and now built resources in offshore renewable energy. We'll also provide details for how to get in touch with Andy Holyland at the ORE Catapult in Lowestoft. But thank you, Catherine. Really fascinating. And thanks for being the first of our gallery of support speakers this morning. And so on that note, I'm going to hand over to Scott Coglan, who's the project lead for Connected Innovation, who's going to tell us a bit more about what to expect in the next hour and a half. Scott, over to you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Yeah, so some of you may have seen me a bit earlier on today. So I'm the project coordinator for the Connected Innovation project. And just to give you a sort of a bit of a summary, I know Johnathan Reynolds gave us a good chat through this morning. It's very much about kind of connecting the dots between the innovation centres across Norfolk and Suffolk, really looking to drive connectivity, collaboration and cross-sector innovation around kind of key areas such as clean growth. And obviously this morning we were able to see a number of the businesses that are working within the innovation hubs and the great work that they're doing around both innovation and kind of clean growth going forward. And what we're really keen to do as part of this project is now and throughout is to really kind of, like Tim mentioned, showcase that wider support that's available through the actual innovation network and the sort of support that can be found around kind of the grant mentoring side as well. Okay, so without any sort of further ado, I'll hand you over to Mary and Christos from Innovate UK Edge, who will be giving us a short presentation.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to share my slides, hopefully. So can everybody see my welcome screen?
Yeah, we can see that, thanks.
That's great. So really pleased to have the opportunity to talk to you this afternoon about Innovate UK Edge, who we are, what we do, and how we might be able to support your innovative business. Now I'm going to find that I can't actually move. There we go. So Innovate UK Edge, we are a service as part of the Innovate UK family, but we're all about helping to support innovative and ambitious companies to be able to grow and to scale up. And we do this by really focusing on 3 primary areas of the business. The first is helping you to exploit your business innovation. So that could be anything from making sure that you've got adequate IP protection through to ensuring that you've really got a strong innovation culture going on with the business, within the business, and able to continually innovate and bring those innovations to market. And the second area focuses on making sure that you've got sufficient funding and finance within the business. And that can be a variety of different funding methods, anything through helping you to find whether there's any suitable grant funding and how you might go about applying for that, and particularly with relation to the iUK grant offering. But it also could be other kinds of funding and finance, for example, getting your business ready for external investment and trying to go forward with equity fundraising. And the third area would be around entering new markets for your products or services, with a particular focus on trying to develop international markets, but we also help you with new routes to market, including the vertical market within the UK. So my next slide just shows you some of the successes that we've had with businesses we've been working with over the last 12 months. Typically, we'll be working with around about 500 businesses over any sort of rolling 12-month period. But this just gives you a sample of some of the information from businesses who've completed the support with us over the recent months. So you can see there that funding and finance raising has been a key feature for quite a few of those businesses, and we've actually helped them to secure £20.7 million in total, not an insignificant sum. And also, given that businesses have been experiencing, well, some businesses have been experiencing some difficulties over the last 18 months, achieving cost savings with businesses has also been really important, as has been safeguarding jobs. But when we look at safeguarding jobs, we've also been able to help businesses to create new jobs as a result of their growth as well. So our support is all very much tailored and bespoke to the individual business, and our innovation growth specialists will be able to work with you and identify measurable impacts that they are going to have on your business as a result of the support. And we sort of pocket those impacts really into 5 of these key areas seen on my screen at the moment. But of course, because of the bespoke and tailored nature of it, it doesn't necessarily always fit into these 5 different areas. So we've talked about accessing finance before, but it could also be about helping you to expand into a new market or develop a kind of expansion strategy. Routes to market, developing marketing strategies and sales strategies and growth strategies, all common issues that we have with our businesses. And also about building partnerships, helping you to collaborate with other businesses, and also maybe it's about finding new suppliers or distribution partners in the UK and beyond. We provide Innovate UK Edge services across the east of England, but the service is available across the rest of the UK as well, but by different partners. But because we work in 6 different counties, then we are able to leverage that in terms of introducing you to other businesses that might be of benefit, if that is appropriate. But we're also still part of something called the Enterprise Europe Network, and that gives us access to partners and experts in 65 countries across the globe, basically all the areas that you can see in pink on the map in the slide. So that is really useful if you're looking to try and find new suppliers or distributors, or maybe you're thinking about moving into a particular geographical area and want to meet the movers and shakers in that particular country. And through our incubator programs as well, we're also actually able to help you with establishing, say, an office presence in a particular location too. We are what we like to term part of the Innovate ecosystem, and the government actually funds research and innovation within the UK to the tune of about £7 billion per annum. That money filters through the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy and obviously goes towards supporting a number of different organisations that might be of benefit to innovative companies. And this kind of tries to explain how this all fits together. So here we've got the research councils that are really beneficial in terms of early stage ideas to research generation. Then we move across to UK Research and Innovation and Innovate UK. And here we split the services into two main areas. There's the whole kind of funding element that Innovate UK can support you with, the smart grants, for example, and innovation loans and other funding initiatives, all of which we are very much aware of, although we don't actually provide the grants ourselves. And then there are the business services, the connecting up element for business support. And which is where Innovate UK Edge sits, because we have a particular focus on helping you to commercialise your innovation. But two other organisations we often find businesses are familiar with are the Knowledge Transfer Network and the Catapult Networks over here. So how do you go about accessing our support? Well, we actually have an application process. So myself and Chris and other members of our team as client engagement advisors are here to explain what we do and how we do it, but we also take you through our application process. So you normally have a Teams meeting with one of us for about an hour, and through that we go through the application form that we have to complete together and help you to put that through. So we focus on what your innovation is, where you're at from a finance, marketing and operations point of view, what particular issues you're facing in the business and that sort of thing. Your application form then goes forward to a panel, an internal panel for approval. And if your business is approved for our support, then we get back in contact with you again and introduce you to an innovation growth specialist who will be allocated to work with you on your business. And their support typically tends to extend around a period of about 6 to 9 months. You'll be having a number of meetings with them, maybe somewhere between 8 and 10 meetings. But the frequency and the nature of that is very much sort of open to discussion between you and them. And it equates to about 5 days of that specialist's time, because they will be working on sort of preparing for meetings, doing a bit of research on your behalf and following up as well. At the end of that period of support, they will be looking to have a sort of wrap-up session with you and identify what impacts their support has had on the business. And if at the end of that period your business is really seen as being very high growth potential, then there is an opportunity for some additional support as well. So we have upwards of 26 innovation growth specialists working for us. We've been recruiting rapidly over the last sort of 6 months or so. All of those specialists that are working with us are very experienced in supporting innovative and growing businesses, either through having run a number of them themselves or being consulting and supporting to them for a number of years as well. So you should expect from them that they're going to be objective and impartial and knowledgeable, but they're also going to be able to help you to sort of intelligently network with other sources of support as well. Then I've just got a couple of case studies that sort of illustrate some of the support that we're able to offer. So Ablatus Therapeutics were a spin-out from Norwich and Norfolk University Hospital, who developed a non-invasive method of tumour surgery. And they were therefore looking to take that to market and grow rapidly, and needed some support to help them to get sufficient funds within the business to enable them to do that. So we helped them to prepare for investment, got them investment ready, if you like, and helped them with their investment pitch. They have since secured £500,000 of matched funding and were awarded a £1.4 million Innovate UK Smart Grant. Then Techspert are based in Cambridge, and they use artificial intelligence to find leading experts in a variety of different fields. And with this business, we helped them in a number of different ways. We actually helped to review their business strategy and approach. We looked at their organisational processes and also the structure that they would need going forward if they were going to rapidly grow. They went on to secure a £400,000 innovation loan and are now very much on target with their growth and are predicting an extra 30 staff joining the business. Then finally, well, who is best suited towards our services? Because it's really important that there is a good match in terms of the sort of stage that the business is at to be able to get the maximum out of our support. So we work with innovative businesses that have a product or service that's going to create some disruption to the marketplace. And that product or service needs to be beyond what we describe as pre-seed stage. So you have a prototype or a minimum viable product already in existence, and that your business model is going to allow you to grow. So ideally having the potential to grow by 20% or more per annum and the potential to internationalise. We're able to work with businesses that have up to 500 employees, so to quite a large size. And then finally, the thing that's really critical is that the senior team of the business are open to receiving external support. So prepared to put in the time, energy and effort to commit to the meetings with our innovation growth specialist, but also to actually working on your business in between those meetings so that we can make sure that you really do deliver some measurable impacts. So I know we've got questions at the end and my contact details, I think, and Chris's contact details you will already have as well. So that just completes my introduction to Innovate UK Edge. Thank you.
Thanks very, very much, Mary. And as I said in the chat, really found that kind of jigsaw puzzle diagram of Innovate UK and the different moving parts of it enormously helpful.
Apologies, and I did start speaking after that and realised I was on mute. So if you could see me talking in the background without any words coming out, that was why. But yeah, I was about to second what Tim said to say that roadmap was very, very useful. And certainly there's a lot of feedback we get, and certainly I've had in my kind of initial conversations with the innovation hubs is around that kind of the road mapping and signposting and knowing who to speak to about what, and at what stages you can approach different people and where to go for that help and advice. So no, that was really useful, really. And I think, you know, we've got a little bit of time sort of ahead in the schedule in terms of this afternoon. So if anyone had any questions, if you're happy to, Mary, happy to sort of take them now.
Absolutely. I'd just like to reiterate as well that if you're not sure whether you would be appropriate for our support, we're always very happy to have an initial conversation with you, Chris, myself, other colleagues, just to find out where you're at with the business and whether it would fit, because obviously, you know, things are not always black and white. So we're really pleased to talk to people about it.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mary. So were there any questions at all? If not, I'll move on to our next session, if that's okay. So I'd just like to obviously welcome Kate Colchester from the New Anglia Growth Hub. Over to you, Kate.
Hi. So I'm a business advisor with the New Anglia Growth Hub, which is an entity that's been around for about 9 years. It's really something that's been constructed from the LEP and using the Norfolk and Suffolk Chambers of Commerce to try and find the right businesses into which to put subsidies from the LEP's bucket of cash. And I'm going to be totally honest, when it first started, innovation was not what it was after. It liked men with CNC machines. In the last couple of years, they've realized that innovation can mean a million different things to a million different kinds of business. And they've actually become much more oriented towards helping firms fund innovative things. I tend to try to put these concepts ground them in reality. So I'd rather give you an example so you know when to call us. If you've been talking to Innovate UK and you've gone through their scheme, you've come up with a fantastic plan, and you're just about to deploy on buying that machine that's going to allow you to make the innovation, give us a call as well. Wouldn't you say, Mary? Because we're supposed to work as a cohesive group that will, at different points, slot in with subsidy, help, payments for good behavior, yeah, for investing in your business at different points in the life cycle of your firm. But I don't think the Growth Hub is necessarily very good at describing that life cycle aspect of it. So in the very beginning, if you're a small firm and you come to the Growth Hub as a startup, you're very often sent, depending on what sector you're in, to an organization called Mentor, or someone who can provide you with startup information, startup funds. We don't do that. We can't help you if you're under 6 months old or don't have at least 6 months worth of positive revenue generation. Okay, when you come to the Growth Hub, it's actually quite good to have a lot of your ideas fully formed, which is why talking to Innovate UK sometimes before you come to us is a really, really good move, because we are not specialists in innovation, we are generalists. So our main grants are things like the small grant scheme, which is grants between £1,000 and £25,000, 20% rebate on your spend on your cash project. Very, very generalist. Has a collection of exclusions, which would include things like hospitality, food and bev, anything that is business to end user. It's much more business to business oriented, which is why I talk about CNC machines incessantly. The next grant size we've got is something called the Growing Business Fund, and that's huge. It's 25,000 to I think £400,000. Again, 20% towards a project. So when you're about to deploy, when you've had that inward investment from a private equity firm to go and develop the new widget that's going to go on the back of an iPhone, blah, 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 and you're about to build the factory, come and talk to us. Because again, there may be a subsidy to help promote or get you to make that final leap. In the middle, we have developed over the last several years a collection of different odd grants. Has to be said, the bigger ones are related to COVID, resilience and recovery. But there is one in there called the Growth Through Innovation Fund. Anyone who's in real innovation, I kind of blush talking about this one around Mary, because the definition of innovation is so wide that we understand it very often to mean just innovation within the firm. Doesn't even have to mean innovation within the sector. Yeah. So we've seen examples where an organization has needed to build themselves a supply chain module onto whatever contact management system they've got. Okay. You and I may be aware that something like it exists in the universe out there, but this guy is going to do enough of an innovation and it's keyed and specialist enough to his sector and his firm that for the purposes of our GTI fund, that would be considered real innovation. It's not a huge grant. It's only 20, I think it's the lowest, I think it's £25,000, but it's a nice little instigator if you are considering innovating either within your firm, within your sector, or for the wider market. That's the totality of our grants, really. In terms of the life cycle of the Growth Hub's grant funding, we're in a really funny space. The two grants I first told you about, so the small grant scheme and the Growing Business Fund, were intrinsically linked to the European Union. And all of their funding channels have obviously been thrown in the air, and we're kind of waiting for it to all come back and land again to find out how much money is going to be in them, how long their duration is going to be, etc. What I will say is the Growth Through Innovation Fund has several £1 million in it at the moment. So do come and ask. Yeah, there aren't many of us at the moment, but we will come back to you as soon as we can with answers around your specific project. But when you do come and ask us the question, I just need to reiterate again, we are not experts in your space. So the more detail you can give us, the better. The first question you will be asked is for some specifics around your project, including the costing and what you're buying, so that we can then go and ask our due diligence team and come back to you very quickly on whether it's worth pursuing grants with us. I'm just trying to think about what else we've got to tell you. I think the big thing is to say that we have at the Growth Hub acted as crisis central for the duration of the COVID pandemic, to the point where, you know, our number was the only number being given out by HMRC to businesses. So you might speak to slightly frazzled people, but we will do our best to help you. We are also aware where you have been affected by COVID, yeah, of where you might be able to pick up extra support for that. So we're, as I said, real generalists. Just give us a call as you need. And I'm happy to take questions whenever you want. If anyone's got any specific questions according to their business sector, etc., just ask away, because I can give you a quick insight now into whether it'll fly or not.
Excellent, thank you very much, Kay. We have had a few questions come in. However, we want to sort of, up to you whether or not we want to go through those now, whether you want to sort of circle back to those at the end of the session.
I don't mind.
Okay, let me just see. So I just had a couple come in. So just in terms of sort of said from any exemptions sort of from the program, so is there any sort of businesses or ideas that I think you mentioned hospitality, but is there any sort of wider businesses and ideas that you cannot support?
In terms of, this is where we're incredibly woolly. And in fact, the COVID crisis has had the effect of widening out eligibility criteria. The business advisor you speak to will find and figure out the best way to fit your square peg into that round hole. But we'll tell you as soon as we know it's not going to fly, okay? So I really would say it's best to contact us and just let us kick the tires with you a little bit, because even that exercise will allow you to get a clearer idea on the kind of information you're going to need to produce when you approach these programs again. The other thing it will help you figure out, and I'm sure Mary encounters this all the time, is how to figure out to structure yourself to be able to take advantage of these things at a later date. Yeah. So something that's actually really relevant in the innovation sector, especially if you're doing something young and funky, is crowdfunding. How does crowdfunding actually affect my ability to go and raise investor capital or go and apply for grants? I have a wonderful vegan pizza manufacturer outside Norwich that took £10,000 in crowdfunding in the initiation of his business. And it created massive problems for us getting grants for him, because he would have had to go out, and this was the theory, and get permission or a sign off from every single one of those people who had crowdfunded him initially to be able to do something else. Yeah, just knowing about those pitfalls. That's what the early stage conversations do. Yeah. That's why you take the free hour from the lawyer and the free hour from the accountant. It's to find out what the pitfalls are. I was, back in the day, an early stage tech entrepreneur, which is really the foundation upon which I base most of my daft opinions. But I exited too early. Yeah, I did all sorts of things wrong. And I actually think it's the people who are able to acknowledge, one, the pitfalls, and then tell you what to be looking out for that you need to be talking to. And I think at this point, most advisors who are working around the government programs, even if we can't direct you to capital, just the commentary we can sometimes give you around our experience and what we've seen happen before can be invaluable.
Excellent. No, that's great to know, Kate. And just another question we've just come in is just around kind of, if you're sort of speaking to the Growth Hub, are they able to sort of help you identify potential partners to collaborate with when it comes to some of the grants or some of the projects you may be working on?
Right. So when you say potential partners, at what level? I mean, in terms of other businesses that you might be doing the same things as, because as business advisors, we're running from pillar to post. If you luck out and happen to talk to an advisor who's spoken to someone like you, you never know. If it's in terms of putting you in contact with other grant programs, we are signposters as much as Innovate UK are, or any other program. But this whole signposting, if I'm honest with you, the whole signposting function that we all perform, the world is so big out there. Yeah, there are so many different programs and bits being launched all the time that even we can't have a completely comprehensive handle on the Go Digital programs out of the local authority, this trust or another trust having something to instigate you to develop something for disabled kids. You know, there's so much stuff out there actually. We do our best, but yeah. So we'll signpost you to other people. If your question is, do we help you find external funding from investors? No, that's not within our parameters.
Yeah, and I think the question was kind of around kind of obviously other potential signposts, and like you mentioned, or other businesses that maybe, you know, you may be able to collaborate with around kind of sort of the project that you're looking to explore, really. So
I'm looking to do it all the time, and I wish more of it went on. I mean, my particular flavor of the month is eco-construction. So I'm desperately trying to connect as many people who are concerned with that space together as I can, just to see if, you know, it can be turned into a cohesive sector.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so no, that's the kind of thing, but that's what I would call soft services.
Perfect.
And it will depend on which advisor you're talking to.
Hmm.
So I don't know what the price of fish is. I really don't. Yeah, but I overpay for my fish. But you know, I am doing the Chartered Financial Institute's ESG qualification.
Okay. Yeah.
So, you know, if that's not a requirement of my role, it's something I'm doing for my own interest. Yeah, it's a question of which advisor you talk to. So we've got another colleague called Robert Turnbull, who's just incredible at process. Yeah, and can advise you on that. We've got another colleague called Chris who tends to be incredibly good with manufacturing companies.
So no, that's really
But
interesting.
the one thing I would note though, yeah, is that to a certain extent the Growth Hub is changing a great deal at the moment. And a lot of our expertise has been hollowed out to go to the more specialist and specific programs like Innovate UK or Tech East. We're very much more acting as just the generalist administrators of grants and less as specific business advisory.
Okay. No, that's really interesting. No, I really appreciate that, Kate. That was really, the actual presentation and kind of the chat through those grants was really useful to know. Especially interesting to hear around the kind of the Growth Through Innovation Fund as well.
Look, if you're in doubt, give it a kick. Just give us a call. It's free. Yeah.
Excellent. We have had a few other questions come in. I think there's been a couple for yourselves, Mary, Christos. But what we'll do is we'll, if I just move on to Laura, we'll come back and we'll have a sort of a wider session at the end for some questions, if that's all right. So yeah, just like to obviously just take this chance to introduce Laura, who's from the Innovation Grant Mentoring Project. Who's going to sort of have a bit of a chat through some of the expertise and advice that's available kind of around the sort of area of financial support as well. So over to you, Laura.
Thanks, Scott. As I said earlier, I'm Laura Hill and I'm Innovation Mentoring Project Manager from Norfolk County Council. I set up the Innovation Grant Mentoring Project at the end of last year. So the project itself is sponsored by New Anglia LEP, and I run that with a fantastic steering group from Norfolk and Suffolk councils. I'm just going to go through an overview of the project. So our vision is to increase the number of successful applications to the innovation grant funding schemes from businesses from Norfolk and Suffolk. Innovation funding has been mentioned sort of earlier on in the day, excuse me, is all about research and developing a new process, product or service, or maybe testing a new innovation idea through funding schemes such as Innovate UK. These grants really help accelerate innovation and help drive new business and invest in the money into research and development within your business. So this project has been set up to offer support in funding, support in applying for innovation funding. We've got mentors and bid writing coaches who we've appointed to this project who have a wealth of experience and have been through applying for innovation funding or developing a new innovation proposal. And they can really help you work through how to achieve innovation funding within your business. The process of getting innovation funding can be quite complex, And so the idea of this project is to help and support companies within Norfolk and Suffolk and really help you achieve that funding within your business. So the idea is that we'll link you with mentors who really understand the challenges but really think that innovation grants are brilliant and will help you overcome those pitfalls and problems along the way. And our bid writing coaches will help you understand individual bid writing opportunities, help you develop your bid, help you answer the questions in the right sort of way, really, to hopefully achieve grant success. And the idea is that this support and knowledge, which you'll be gaining from the mentors and coaches, will stay within your business. And you'll be able to have success in future applications as well. So the project offer, we are supporting in several different ways. The project is really, really flexible, and we can work with businesses at whatever stage of innovation they might be within sort of that process to achieving grant funding. So our basic offer really is providing innovation funding workshops and webinars, which are free to attend for businesses across Norfolk and Suffolk. And then we also link you to our mentors for grant mentoring and to our bid writing support. These are by application. So who's this project for? This project is for any business within Norfolk and Suffolk, any SME from any industry sector. And we're sort of keen to support businesses, as I said, at any point in that innovation journey, whether they need support on their innovation proposal, whether they're businesses which are new to innovation and have had that idea but don't quite know where to go with it. And then maybe businesses that have previously tried to apply for innovation funding, but not had success, maybe it's not easy. The process of applying for innovation isn't easy, which is why this project's been set up to help businesses through that. And we really hope that you'll re-engage if you've got that innovation which you'd like to explore, apply for innovation funding. We'll support you through that, and it will help de-risk that innovation you want to explore within your business. And hopefully you'll be successful, and that will help drive your business and future-proof potentially. So how do you come to this project? Well, there's several different referral routes. As I said, we were sponsored by New Anglia LEP, and we're lucky that we've got referrals coming in from the Growth Hub through that. We've got a fantastic support network from the steering group, as I mentioned earlier. So our steering group includes the Cambridge Norwich Tech Corridor, the Enterprise Europe Network, well, I should actually say Innovate UK Edge. I need to update that slide, apologies. Hethel Innovation, the Knowledge Transfer Network, Mentor, the Offshore Renewables Catapult, as I said earlier, Suffolk County Council, and then the two universities in the area. So we've got the University of East Anglia and the University of Suffolk. But you can also come to the project as a self-referral through the website as well. So I'll share the link to that later in the presentation. Excuse me. So through this project, we can link you also with our partners, potentially if maybe the support you require might work with their support network, their support offering as well. So potentially it could be a two-way journey. You may receive support from the Innovation Grant Mentoring Project and also support through us, through one of our partners. So registering to this project can be really beneficial for your business. Okay, just to give you a bit more clearer idea on how the project works itself. As I said, we're a really flexible project, and depending on what stage you're at, we can work with you. So on the screen, you'll see that we've got our mentor workshops and bid writing workshops. That's our sort of basic offer to companies in Norfolk and Suffolk that have registered to the scheme, although you don't have to actually have registered to be able to attend those sessions. They're all advertised through all our project partners. As we run them, we're running them every sort of 6 to 8 weeks at the moment, covering basic topics of innovation, sort of top tips of bid writing. We ran one last week on innovation funding. What is it and am I ready for it? So we've got some really interesting sort of basic workshops around innovation to sort of make you sort of understand sort of possibly sort of how you might approach and where to go next. And then when you feel ready to sort of talk further about your innovation, you can apply to the business panel on the project for the bespoke support. And the bespoke support is the mentoring and the coaching, which I spoke about earlier. We have available up to 20 hours of mentoring from our experts and up to 35 hours of bid coaching. This is free support. Some companies might go to bid writing companies for support towards their applications, but through this project, we're able to offer this free, invaluable support from, as I said, our team of experts who come from a wide range of fields. And when I see your application, if you've been successful, I can match you with the right type of mentor or coach to help you through that innovation funding application process. So your application, say we'll go to the panel. The panel's made up of a steering group and they'll evaluate your application to the project for support. And we'll just need some basic information about your innovation, your proposal and where you're at with it. And the team will evaluate whether that's sort of suitable for the project support. We'll feed that back to you and then potentially you'll be able to tap into the support. Okay, so what next? What we'd really like you to do, this is a fantastic project if you're interested in innovation to be part of. If you'd like to go onto the website, which I'll link into the chat bar shortly, and register to the project, I'll get in contact and then we can just start discussing sort of where you're at and whether you would like to sort of initially try out the workshops or whether you're ready maybe to apply directly for the bespoke mentoring and coaching. The idea of the project is that we're working with businesses to get you bid ready. We love to hear from businesses who aren't about to sort of literally submit their application for these types of innovation funding. If you come to me and say, I'm going to submit an application in 2 weeks, can you help me? It's really difficult for us to be able to offer that level of support, which I've said we've got with the 35 hours bid coaching and the 20 hours mentoring to you within that period of time. So what we'd like to do really is engage with businesses prior to perhaps even identifying the types of competitions that you're interested in applying for. So please get in contact when you're considering it and we can discuss that further. Through our partners involved in the project, we can help you by perhaps, and through the mentors and coaches as well, we can help you identify the right types of competitions to apply for, because that's often really quite difficult to negotiate. We're happy to support there. We're happy to support you by linking you with different organisations who might be able to suggest appropriate companies to collaborate with. As I know was mentioned earlier in the presentation, we could assist there. There's all sorts of ways potentially we could assist you in that process to having everything ready. So when you do see a competition that you want to apply for, everything's ready to go. Through this project, we can support you get everything ready. So it's not a mad dash to sort of fill in that application form at the end. With the project, we don't actually write the applications for you. We coach you how to put that application together. And I really hope that from this project, you could potentially apply for further fundings in the future. And also the support we're offering will also fall into other types of grants as well as innovation funding. You'll learn new skills through this project, which can support there as well. So yes, so please do get in touch, register online if you're interested, or contact me directly. But ultimately, what we'd really want to do is to help you achieve a successful fund application. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Laura. That's
here's
great.
the details as well.
That's great. Now we'll make sure that the link is shared in the chat as well, but we'll be sort of sending out a handout after this session with some more information around that too. But I thought that was really interesting to follow on from kind of some of the points that Kate was making around kind of the idea around kicking the tires, and you know, this idea around kind of the help and support that's available around the actual sort of grant funding process, and also actually the kind of something that's maybe not kind of appreciated as much as that idea of the knowledge sharing and kind of what you take away from the process and how that helps you and your business going forward, really. So no, that was really informative, Laura. We did just have a question come in during your presentation, and it was around whether the support is for any grant or bid, or is it only limited to certain types or specific types of grants and funding?
So the project's all about supporting innovation funding. So whether that's for Innovate UK or any other forms of innovation funding, we're here to support. But I mean, our team we've got experts within Innovate UK. But I think if the skills which can be learned from sort of discussions around Innovate UK could filter through to other funding streams as well, as I said earlier.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, that sort of brings us to sort of, obviously we've heard from all of our speakers now from each of the sort of the three support networks. As I mentioned, we sort of circle back around again and just go back over some sort of questions that have come in during the presentations. At this point, if you do have anything further, obviously we would encourage you to sort of raise your hand and to sort of share that directly. But just before we do that, I will just circle back just to a couple of the questions that came in just while we were going through the presentations. So just for going back to kind of obviously Mary and Christos again, sort of a question really about when is the right time to speak with Innovate UK Edge, and is it the idea stage you need to be at, or is it kind of more around the sort of proven concept stage?
Yeah, so we don't tend to work with very early stage innovation. That would normally be for one of the other partner organisations. As I mentioned before, the Innovate UK Edge services are really best directed towards businesses that are looking to commercialise their innovation. So having that minimum viable product or prototype is fairly key to it. However, if the business has had an innovative background, or for example, we might be able to be a little bit more flexible. But as I mentioned before, if anybody's ever not sure, then again, good idea to try and get in touch and we will talk to you about it.
Excellent. No, and just another question was around kind of would Innovate UK Edge help me around kind of sort of the bids and grants around competition funds as well in terms of kind of the sort of bid writing?
Mm-hmm. Our support probably differs to that offered by Laura's organisation. We are about sort of the innovation and growth that does incorporate looking at what grants are available and grant competitions. We don't provide bid writing expertise directly. What we're able to do is to help the business to understand what is required, well, what's available and what is required, but we don't actually do it, with the business.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mary. We just had another question just come in for Kate as well. Just around kind of the grants through the Growth Hub and whether they can be used for hire purchase items at all.
Nah, sorry, mate. No way. Yeah, not happening. Okay, and actually, I'm just going to give the logic of this. Okay, so I'm just going to go one-on-one on how the grants work, because there's a lot of odd ideas about grants post-COVID. Yeah. As a business who paid business rates of a certain level, you would suddenly have 10K appear in your account. Fantastic. Our grants don't work that way at all. Okay, you have to have the cash in the bank and be able to provide us with a really solid quote that will not change. Otherwise, you won't get your money back. And this is the huge difficulty with most tech builds. So programming builds, when you go and ask for that quote, it says these bits of software will cost you this much. You know, if you do it in Red Hat, it's free. If you do it in Silverlight, it's this much. And then my guys and my programmers will give you this many hours to get it to this level. And then it's going to be billable hours thereafter, or you can pay a retainer. It's a how long is a piece of string quote. It's really hard to go and apply with quotes like that. You can only apply up to a certain point in that particular development. Yeah, and then you're kind of on your own. Once you've got that first stage done, you get an invoice generated, you pay it, you bring that invoice to the grant paying organization and they rebate you the percentage grant against the project that you've already deployed on. But you have to have spent your money first. Yeah. Okay. Given that that's the situation, it's really difficult, yeah, to do anything that has either a never purchase date, which would be hire purchase. You don't own it and you haven't paid the full amount until that contract is fulfilled, which can very often be many years down the line. And all of these programs have end dates on them. So for example, we've got the small grant scheme ending at the end of this month. Yeah, so anyone who'd made an application, I'm actually having to turn down applications at the moment because I know they haven't got any chance of being able to generate the required paperwork before that scheme closes its doors. And with business advisors, this is the bit they don't tell you. We're actually doing our best to manage people's expectations around getting money. We have to, because the minute you talk to a guy, as an independent business person, everything that you hear is a potential. Yeah. And the minute you hear you may potentially get £25,000 towards the redevelopment of your supply chain technology, that we're going to help you build that patch, he's already calculating it into his bottom line. Yeah. So we try to be really careful with people because you don't want to destroy someone's passion. And getting turned down for 25 grand at the inception of your innovation, that can put you off. So I think we try to be really careful around making promises. But going back to the question, anything like hire purchase, we can't do. Anything that doesn't have an end date gets problematic. Sorry, you got a lot more information there than you need.
No, that was really useful, Kate. No, thank you very much. That's really interesting to kind of get the narrative around that, and also kind of, you know, around that conversation with people around that kind of very honest, sort of open approach as well. It's really interesting to know. Just to go back to Mary again, just a sort of a quick question for yourself is just around the sort of in terms of is there a limit around the hours of support available, or is that kind of dependent upon idea, the business, or the people that you're dealing with at all?
As I mentioned before, if you are accepted onto the programme, then you have what equates to 5 days of an innovation growth specialist's time available. But if your business is higher growth, then there is some additional support available at the end of that. And we may also be able to point you in the direction of and help you with 1 or 2 other forms of assistance as well, which would then obviously increase the amount of time, if you like, to put it that way, as a benefit as well.
Excellent. I thank you very much. And I've just I've got a bit of a question, I guess, kind of probably led by a bit by myself, really. I think one of the kind of clear up, ideas we're kind of trying to get out of this event was around kind of demystifying kind of what we mean sometimes when we refer to things like clean growth and also innovation, really. So I'd kind of be interested to know, I guess, from each of you, kind of what is your kind of own sort of working definition of innovation when people are kind of coming to you for grants and for support. So sorry, I'll start with Mary. Sorry.
I was just conscious that my colleague Chris hasn't been able to say anything very much. Do you want to answer this one, Chris, or would you rather I did?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. Just want to interfere. So yeah, good question, Scott. So I would say that as soon as the innovations or the new product or services that the companies are bringing to market allow the users to do things smarter, faster, cheaper. It might be something that's more environmentally friendly or energy efficient. So there are many different ways that something can be innovative.
Excellent. and take that question to Kate.
My initial response is that's above my pay grade. But being serious, yeah, this has been the single largest point of discussion around our Growth Through Innovation Fund, okay? I talk to private equity managers in Hong Kong, and their definition of innovation is probably what you expect it to be, yeah? Especially if you've been sort of banging your head against the innovation definition anyway. That is not the definition within the LEP and for the purposes of our grants. The last GTI I got was for a gentleman who was making a hypoallergenic animal bedding. Okay, that's not innovation. It's innovation to his firm. So it's really about you as a business turning around, looking at yourself and thinking, oh, this feels innovative to me. Yeah, I'm doing something unusual that's going to create those conditions that innovation creates. Yeah. It's actually more inward looking than outward looking. And we all tend to think of innovation as being something incredibly outward and benefiting and evolving. Don't be freaked out by the term innovation is really my point, yeah? It can be things like tweaking and changing your internal processes and needing to build something to do so that's going to create an efficiency for your business, not just creating innovation for the public or your clients, etc. It is really broad. And that's why, again, sorry, I'm like a old violin, give it a kick, give us a call. Or we'll say, or, you know, if it's not, we'll just tell you as soon as we can.
Excellent. No, thank you very much, Kate. And just finally for yourself, Laura.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So for me, innovation is all about that research and development, developing a new idea, a process, a service or a product maybe. I've worked in the field of innovation for a number of years. I came to this project after running Innovate UK projects in the food industry. I'm a food scientist by training, and so worked in the R&D field there for a long time. So it's not, innovation funding isn't about developing a new line, maybe an extension of your product already. It's something completely different, which really shakes up that innovation process in your business. And innovation funding can really drive that innovation. So that maybe, for example, we're in the food industry. When I worked on Innovate UK projects, I spent 3-4 years working on an Innovate UK project. We took the product right back to the very basics and worked with a university to be able to help develop a new product. It wasn't mainstream development as I knew previously within the business. So it is quite different. If you feel that you've got an innovation you'd like to discuss, I think as everyone else has said, please do just get in touch. We've got fantastic experience on the project from a team of experts, so we can advise you as to whether we feel that it would be appropriate for innovation funding or not. So yeah, get in touch and discuss.
Superb.
Just one other comment around that, yeah. Just to sort of back up again why you need to talk to myself, Mary and Laura, yeah, is because we've talked a little bit about how we act to broke you out to other funding programs, etc. Genuinely, we are in a position, all of us in these programs have been in a position to network with your peers, okay, and being able to interconnect you with the universities, knowing what they're doing. Very often as an entrepreneur, you're building something in a bubble, and no one can capture everything. So the number of guys who I talk to who think they've got something innovative that's being done 2 doors down the road by their friend Jack, they've just never talked about it. Yeah, it is heartbreaking for someone to spend years or months of their life thinking they're doing something hugely unusual. If you talk to us, we're actually able to save you time, yeah, and make sure you're talking to the right people to be able to do appropriate market research. And Laura's market research bit, that is the single most important bit that you can ever do in your innovation cycle. Yeah, because rocking up to market with something someone's already done, what's the point in that?
Excellent. No, thank you very much. No, I think just to see if anyone else has got any other questions they'd like to sort of add in, if they would like to raise their hand or pop anything in the chat. As I say, if not, I think, yeah, you know, in terms of kind of sort of summarize in the last session, I think it's been really useful to kind of obviously hear from Mary, Kate, Christos and Laura this afternoon in terms of kind of some of the wider support that's available, and sort of to try and link it back round to the actual Connected Innovation project that I'm coordinating as well. Is I think today, as an event session's been really good to not just be able to showcase the innovation and what's going on within the region, but really open up this idea of kind of the support that's available. And I know Kate's reinforced it a few times, but having these conversations and really tapping into that network, kicking the tires and having that real access to knowledge really. And I think, as a resource really going forward, I think it's definitely something that, throughout the sort of Connected Innovation project that we'll continue to sort of, really look to push and also use this session really as a very useful resource to kind of share with our network around kind of the different routes that are available and the different people that they can speak to. So I think that was kind of one of the real key things we wanted to get from today, and helping to really kind of clarify what things that are meant around kind of terms like innovation and clean growth is really useful as well. So no, I'd just like to say, a big thank you to the speakers this afternoon. I really appreciate your time. It's been really good. It's really good to have you here and to be able to ask us some questions and to really kind of take that conversation forward from our perspective as well. So what we're just going to do now is just going to run just a couple of polls just around the session, just to sort of see how you found it and kind of sort of potential follow-up from this point forward as well. So they should sort of appear fairly shortly. But yeah, no, again, just like to say thank you very much. I could just see them coming up on my screen now. So yeah, and I'll happily obviously sort of share information from today with all the speakers and the support networks in terms of some documents that we'll do in terms of follow-up from this event. And obviously as the Connected Innovation project continues to develop and move forward now, obviously we'll keep you updated of sort of future opportunities and events that we're running within this network too. So yeah, that was more or less anything from me. I'll just quickly hand back to Tim, just in case there's any closing remarks that he'd like to make as well.
Thank you, Scott. No, I thought you summarised it extremely well. I mean, there were three things that I took away actually from the three presentations, which I'd just like to sort of hit upon. I mean, I think the first and probably the most important is that there are no wrong doors when you're having conversations with different organisations about innovation and innovation support. And I think Innovate UK made that point this morning as well. Sometimes to the outside world, it can seem like quite a complex landscape. And to Kate's point, it's a landscape that moves quickly with lots of different programs coming on stream and then coming to an end. And I think the important thing is just to use that network. And I wanted just to kind of, I think kind of reflect on the importance and the value of the hubs that we do have around the region that we've been helping bring together today through this project. So whether that's Innovation Martlesham at Astral Park, or whether that's Innovation Labs in Stowmarket, Petal Innovation, Norwich Research Park, the Epicentre, CFAS, the universities. Within each of those organisations, there is also expertise to help guide business to these types of resources. It may vary slightly in terms of from place to place how that's communicated, but I think what we're seeing here is that there is this sort of breadth and depth of support everywhere. There's probably exactly the right program for your business out there if you can find it, but you maybe just need to have 2 or 3 conversations to get there. And what I'm very encouraged by is the level of willingness between all the organisations speaking this afternoon, whether it's Innovate UK Edge with Growth Hub, Norfolk County Council, to speak to each other and refer and signpost and so on. And then I think the other thing that was that whole thing of engaging early. It's so frustrating, I think, if you're in the game of supporting businesses, to be having that conversation with a business where they've sort of missed the boat, where it's a bit too late. Had it been 6 months before, things would have been possible. So I think, again, that's a great message to share, and one that one that some countries have come across really, really clearly, particularly in Laura's presentation. But yeah, I think we're almost there. I mean, this is almost the end of Connected Innovation. This has been the first of a series of events we'll be running over the next couple of years. And from my point of view, I just wanted to thank everybody who's played a part in today's event, especially and including all our delegates who've come along to find out more and will hopefully share with their network. We will be making this conference available, a recording of this conference available afterwards. But, you know, our keynote speakers, Johnathan and Ian, are our business focused speakers this morning. Whether that was Angus, Neil, Lewis, Fran, Danny, and our gallery of support. So we heard before lunch from Catherine, and obviously this afternoon we've had great presentations from Mary, Christos, Kate, Laura, and finally to the production team who pulled it all together, the Connected Innovation team, Scott, Sue, Bridget, working behind the scenes to make it happen. Thanks all so much for your support, and we'll be back with another Connected Innovation event a bit later in the year. And it only remains for me to wish you all a good afternoon, and we'll see you soon.